My husband suddenly starts ranting about how he refuses to be the breadwinner for a housewife, spouting things that make no sense. Before I know it, he's packing up my belongings. "What are you doing?" I ask, bewildered. "I'm asking you to leave this house until you realize what you've done," he replies coldly. "What?" I can barely process his words. My name is Mary, a 27-year-old office worker. I recently landed my dream job at a cosmetics company and threw myself into my work with enthusiasm. My dedication paid off. I received excellent feedback from my boss and earned a promotion. For someone my age, my salary is pretty impressive. I've been married to my husband Tom for a year. We're the same age, but he earns less than I do. It doesn't bother me, but I've come to realize that it's a sensitive issue for him. Tom never brings it up directly, but whenever our conversations drift towards work, he quickly changes the subject. I think it reminds him that his salary is lower than mine. He often seems unmotivated about his job, saying, "I don't have a great job, so I've learned to avoid talking about my work too much at home." Despite this, Tom does his share of the housework and is great at cooking and cleaning. He has a gentle nature and we communicate well, so I've always felt that we're a strong couple. But now I'm beginning to wonder if I was the only one who felt that way. One day I wasn't feeling well and experienced severe nausea. Concerned, I went to the hospital and found out I was pregnant. Excited, I immediately shared the news with my husband. He was overjoyed, and seeing his happiness made me even more thrilled. I thought to myself, we're going to build a loving, warm family. Decided to take maternity leave about 6 weeks before my due date, wanting to give myself time to rest since it was my first pregnancy. However, around that time, I noticed a subtle change in my husband's attitude. When he came home one evening, I greeted him with a smile. "Welcome home." He looked at me lagging on the sofa and remarked, relaxing on the sofa again, "Huh? You've got it easy." His tone surprised me. At first, I brushed it off, assuming he was just stressed from work. But as the days passed, his attitude toward me grew colder and more distant. "Hey, where's my dinner? Sorry, I'm not feeling well today, so I picked up some pre-made food from the supermarket." "What? You've got to be kidding me. After a long day at work, you're serving me supermarket pre-made food." His sudden outburst caught me off guard, and I was too exhausted to argue. Some days I felt so sick that I could barely do anything. Even the smell of food made me nauseous. On one of those days, I sent my husband a message explaining how I was feeling and asked if he could either cook for himself or grab something to eat. He didn't respond, but I saw that he'd read the message, so I assumed everything was fine. I crawled into bed and fell asleep for a few hours. When I woke up, it was midnight. I got up to go to the bathroom and noticed the light was on in the living room, with voices drifting from inside. Curious, I walked in and was surprised to find that my husband had brought some of his colleagues home with him. "Oh, look, the selfish princess has finally woken up," one of his colleagues said with a smirk. Another added, "Sorry to disturb you." I greeted them politely, but I was shocked. I quickly pulled my husband aside into the hallway. "What's going on? Why would you bring people over this late?" He shrugged. "What's the big deal? We went out for drinks, and when that wasn't enough, I invited them back here. You know I'm pregnant, right?" I said, trying to keep my frustration in check. "So what? I'm not asking you to do anything risky. But could you please consider the impact this is having on my mental health?" "What? You're overreacting. If you had cooked dinner, I wouldn't have needed to go out for drinks with them. So you're the one responsible for me bringing them home." His reasoning made no sense to me. If you have so much energy, why don't you make something to eat and serve it to everyone? "I can't, I'm still feeling sick." "You're just being selfish. You're ruining the fun for everyone. Go back to your bedroom and get some rest." With that, he turned and went back into the living room. I couldn't take it anymore. Frustrated, I decided to move back to my parents' house. I explained the situation to my obstetrician and asked if I could give birth near them. Fortunately, She knew an obstetrician close to my parents' place and promptly provided me with a letter of introduction. I left a note on the table saying, "I'm going home for a while to give birth." My husband immediately started calling and messaging, but I chose to ignore him. About a week later, I received a message from him saying, "I'm sorry. You can stay at your parents' house and rest before the birth." Although I still hadn't forgiven him, I was relieved to hear his apology. I stayed at my parents' house and it made a huge difference. I felt much better. My nausea subsided and my appetite returned. After that, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. My parents were thrilled to welcome their granddaughter, and my husband came to the hospital as well. He was overjoyed to hold our daughter, exclaiming, "She's so cute," and showed genuine concern for my health. I felt relieved, thinking that he had returned to his caring and gentle self. Once I recovered, I spent about 2 weeks at my parents' house before moving back to the home I shared with my husband. When I returned, he eagerly took on the task of feeding our daughter after work. Initially, he was very involved, helping with diaper changes and bath times. His enthusiasm and support were incredibly encouraging. I felt relieved, believing that my husband and I would be able to live together harmoniously once more. However, about 2 months after our daughter was born, his attitude began to shift again. It seemed to be related to our baby's increased nighttime crying. Until then, she had been sleeping soundly, but now her cries were frequent and disruptive, waking us up regularly throughout the night. The lack of sleep began to take a toll on my husband, who became increasingly stressed and less supportive with childcare. He even said, "I'll sleep on the couch," and left me to handle everything on my own. Additionally, he started coming home late from work, which only deepened my mistrust and concern about our relationship. Once I saw him acting this way, I began to notice many other things about him. I started expressing my frustration about his lack of involvement in raising our child. My husband appeared increasingly stressed, and one day he made a startling comment. "Who do you think is providing for you?" "What?" I asked, confused. "It's because of me that you're able to stay home and live comfortably. You should show more respect for your husband." I was taken aback. "I appreciate that you were supportive in the beginning. But lately, when our daughter cries, you just brush it off and say, 'Hey, she's crying,' without offering any help." "No, that's not what I'm talking about," he snapped. "What do you mean by silly?" I asked, puzzled. "I'm the boss in this house and you're showing me disrespect." "I don't understand what you're referring to," I said, genuinely confused. "I'm the one who earns the money, so you need to show me more respect." He then began to say things that didn't make sense, like, "I'm not going to be the breadwinner for a housewife." Without warning, he started packing up my belongings. "What are you doing?" I asked, bewildered. "I'm asking you to leave this house until you regret what you've done," he said as he hastily stuffed my clothes into a bag and tried to force me out. "Fine, I'll go. Just let me pack my things myself," I responded, starting to fold my clothes and place them in my bag. Once I was done packing, I picked up my daughter and saw him throw my box out the front door. "Come back when you've had time to reflect on your actions," he said, and then he locked the front door behind him. Left with no other option, I returned to my parents' house. After leaving my daughter in my mother's care, I went to the city office to pick up the divorce papers. The next day, I went back to my husband's house and rang the doorbell. "Oh, you're back already? I suppose you've realized you can't manage without me. All I need is for you to show me you're sorry. If you get down on your knees, I might forgive you," my husband said with a smirk. Ignoring his demands, I pulled the divorce papers from my bag and handed them to him. "What? Divorce papers? Why? I thought you were sorry," he exclaimed, confused. "After everything you've said and done, I have nothing to apologize for. I haven't done anything wrong. I can't stay married to you any longer," I replied firmly. My husband was clearly taken aback, not expecting me to follow through with the divorce. He then said something that made little sense. But you're okay with this. It's going to be tough for you as a single mother. You don't even have a job. How will you support your daughter? What are you talking about? I didn't lose my job, I replied. What? You've been home all this time. I thought you quit because you got pregnant. Oh, so that's what you've assumed. Who said I quit my job? I'm just on maternity and childcare leave. What? It seemed my husband believed that women automatically quit their jobs after giving birth. Oh no, I thought you had become a stay-at-home wife, he said, realizing his misunderstanding. Oh, I see. So you thought you could one-up me, I said. My husband's face went pale with shock. It was clear he was deeply hurt. He had always been proud, and when we were both working, my higher income seemed to bother him. I guess he just assumed I had quit my job rather than being on leave. I was thoroughly disgusted by his behavior. Husbands and wives should be equal, I told him. I'm exhausted from dealing with your inferiority complex. I never cared about who made more money. Realizing the gravity of his actions, my husband broke down in tears and pleaded, I'm sorry. Please don't divorce me. But by then it was too late. I asked him to sign the divorce papers and left the house. We later finalized the divorce through our lawyers. I have recorded my ex-husband's verbal abuse as a precaution, so I was able to use it as evidence to secure alimony for the harassment I endured. Without my income, he couldn't afford the rent on our apartment, so he had to move to a cheaper place. Interestingly, when he brought his colleagues over that night, they had no idea I was pregnant. When they saw my belly, they were all taken aback. After our divorce, rumors spread at his workplace that he'd been dumped by his wife. My ex-husband must be feeling a lot of shame now, and he totally deserves it. Meanwhile, I took maternity leave and returned to work, now living at my parents' house. They've been incredibly supportive as I balance work and raising my child. Although my marriage didn't work out, I'm happier than ever thanks to the fulfilling work I love and the joy on my daughter's face. I'm committed to my career and excited to watch my daughter grow up. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video. I was caught off guard when I found out you weren't staying with us. I didn't make a reservation for you, and my mind went blank with frustration. We're on a family vacation that I never even wanted to go on in the first place, and now we're at a fancy hotel. My husband pretends not to notice the tension and walks away. We'll see you at checkout, Emily, he says as he heads into the luxurious hotel with everyone else, leaving me behind. My name is Emily, and I just turned 30 this year. I'm a stay-at-home mom living with my husband, Spencer, my mother-in-law, Kate, and our son, Sean, who is now 3. Spencer and I met on a blind date 7 years ago, and married shortly after. Our life together has been ordinary and free of major conflicts, and we're known among the neighbors as a loving couple. 2 years after we married, we had Sean. Spencer was busy with work but was always actively involved in childcare. I had no complaints about him, and life was manageable. However, things began to change after Sean was born. 6 months ago, my father-in-law passed away, and Kate was set to move in with us. The last time I saw her, other than at our wedding, was when Spencer and I visited her to announce our engagement. It had been quite some time, and my first impression of her hadn't been positive. My father-in-law, on the other hand, was always kind to me and left me with a good impression. I remember his concerns about whether I was the right choice for Spencer and his worries that I might cause him trouble. His bluntness about these concerns stung, and although Spencer worked hard to win her approval, Kate's disapproving looks were hard to ignore. We eventually managed to get her approval with some persuasion, but I still resent how openly critical she was in front of me. When Kate and her belongings finally arrived at our house, I was determined to stay positive and do my best to get along with her. I helped her unpack and was relieved to see she was kind to Sean. Spencer and I divided the tasks. He handled the heavy items while I took care of the smaller things. Unpacking went smoothly, until a minor issue arose. "This is supposed to go over here," Kate commented, referring to a fake plant I had placed to brighten up the room. Although I was annoyed by her criticism, I moved the plant to where she wanted it. She then spent some time watching TV and didn't offer any help with the unpacking. I was busy managing scene and finishing up the packing, but couldn't ask Spencer, who was resting after handling the heavy lifting, for help. I ended up finishing the task with mixed emotions, feeling the strain of trying to keep the peace. Tried to convince myself that Kate was just struggling with the change in her living situation and pushed aside my frustration towards her. However, her criticism persisted daily. One morning, after waking up early to prepare breakfast for everyone, I attempted to take a break. But Kate's voice cut through the quiet. "If you have time to rest, you should be cleaning up the house." She never gave me a moment's peace, constantly criticizing how I did things. Meanwhile, she was rarely home during the day and never seemed to lift a finger herself. The constant strain was wearing me down, so I decided to talk to Spencer about her behavior. "She must be having a hard time adjusting," I said, hoping for some support. But despite knowing how she treated me, Spencer didn't intervene. I would lay in bed each night, my hands on my forehead, overwhelmed and unable to sleep. No matter how I felt, my 3-year-old son would cry at night from the exhaustion. I struggled to get out of bed to comfort him, and Kate, disturbed by the noise, would shake me awake, scolding me for not attending to him sooner. "How can you still be sleeping when your son is crying? It's your job to take care of him," she would yell, berating me for my fatigue and inability to keep up. I didn't want to escalate things, so I quietly got up, but the stress left me with no sleep that night. When Spencer was off work the next day, I planned to cook lunch. Kate, however, had already started preparing the meal. When she placed the food on the table, one plate was noticeably missing. "Looks like one plate is missing," Kate said. "I made it for Spencer, who works hard, and for my grandson. There's none for you. Make your own." I was stunned and hurt. It became glaringly clear that Kate's behavior was more than just criticism. It was deliberate mistreatment. I had been trying to ignore it for a while, but it was impossible to overlook any longer. I struggled to tolerate Kate's behavior, trying to convince myself that she was just being tough on me to make me a better wife. If I didn't keep thinking this way, I would have crumbled under the pressure. Unable to voice my frustrations to Kate directly, I confided in a friend after dropping Scene off at daycare. "That's definitely bullying. How are you holding up?" she asked, genuinely concerned. I detailed everything to my childhood best friend, who listened with empathy. Her concern and support overwhelmed me, and I finally broke down in tears. I had been battling my frustrations alone for too long. She reassured me that I was doing my best and that things would get better. "I'll help you. We'll figure something out," she promised. Although our conversation was brief because we both had commitments, I felt the weight lift from my shoulders. My friend suggested a couple of things. One idea was to use a recording device to capture what was being said in the house. On my way to pick up Scene, I bought a cheap recorder. When I got home, I found Kate out as usual, and took the opportunity to set up the recorder discreetly. While cleaning, I noticed a piece of paper that had fallen from a drawer in Kate's room. When I picked it up and unfolded it, I discovered it was a personal loan agreement for $20,000. I could hardly believe what I was seeing. But I decided it might be useful and tucked the paper into my pocket. After a while, Kate returned, and soon Spencer came home just in time for dinner. As we sat around the table, Kate began her usual complaints. Then out of the blue she mentioned, "By the way, my friend gave me a discount coupon for a one-night stay at a 5-star spa hotel." Her mention of the coupon seemed like a hint that she wanted to go. Spencer was enthusiastic about the idea, and even Scene seemed excited. I, on the other hand, wasn't thrilled and braced myself for what I anticipated would be an unpleasant experience. "Well, since you're here and you work so hard, you might as well join us," Kate said. I was taken aback. Hearing such an offer from someone who had been so critical of me was astonishing. Part of me wondered if she meant well, though I struggled to believe her offer wasn't made with some ulterior motive. She wanted to book everything for the next day. That night, I couldn't sleep, trying to decide what to do. By morning, I was still conflicted. I sat for a long time, pondering the trip. Sean wanted to go, but since Mom wouldn't be able to watch him, and it would be difficult to take him with me alone. Needed Spencer's help. You don't support me when your mother mistreats me. I don't want to go, I said. Spencer was at a loss for words. He knew I was right and was caught between wanting to please his mother and addressing my concerns. He pleaded with me to reconsider, so I decided to set a condition. Fine, but first, take a look at this, I said, showing him the loan agreement I had found in Kate's room. Spencer's face went pale as he read the document, revealing Kate's $20,000 debt. He was shocked and couldn't believe his mother was in such financial trouble. Can we help her pay this off? As her son, I can't just ignore it, he asked, knowing that I was responsible for managing our finances. Of course, I replied, understanding the complexity of the situation. I declined Kate's offer. I had no intention of helping someone who had treated me poorly. I understood Spencer's feelings as a son, but I couldn't agree to support Kate under those circumstances. I told Spencer, I will help you with this trip, but only if you agree to my conditions. The first condition was that Spencer must intervene whenever Kate mistreated or overly criticized me. The second was that I would establish some ground rules for Kate, write them down, and post them around the house. If Kate couldn't agree to these conditions, we would have to ask her to leave. Spencer agreed to these terms, and we decided to implement them after the trip. I asked my friend to post the rules while we were away. We would continue to act normally until the trip was over, and then we'd put our plan into action. Spencer agreed, and I decided to go on the trip with them. The next day, I informed Kate that I would be joining them. I kept reminding myself to be patient just a little longer. On the day of the trip, Spencer handled everyone's bags as we prepared to leave the house. Kate's bullying began immediately. You don't need to carry the bags. Let Emily do it, she said. Spencer glanced at me apologetically, and I complied, believing it was better to avoid conflict. However, the bags were extremely heavy, and managing them while taking care of Sean left me exhausted. The journey involved taking an Amtrak train followed by a drive over a mountain road to the hotel. The exterior and interior of the hotel were stunningly luxurious. Sean was thrilled, exploring every corner, while Kate admired the decor and checked us in at the front desk. As I grabbed my bag and prepared to head to our room, Kate's next words took me by surprise. Were you planning to stay with us? I only made a reservation for the three of us. I was stunned and speechless. It became clear that Kate had invited me on this trip solely to serve as a porter and never intended for me to stay. Gradually, the reality of the situation sunk in. I asked Kate, then where should I sleep? Her response was dismissive. I don't know and I don't care. Why don't you just camp out in the woods? I was taken aback. She had invited me on this trip only to suggest that I sleep outside. I was seething with anger, and I almost shouted at her, but she and my family had already disappeared down the hallway. I'll see you at checkout time, Kate called back over her shoulder. Left standing alone in the lobby, I felt a mix of frustration and disbelief. I had suspected there was a catch, but being forced to camp out was beyond what I had imagined. Tears welled up in my eyes as I made my way out of the hotel. Spencer sent a brief message saying, "I'm sorry." I was too hurt and angry to respond. After noon, I found a cafe for lunch and later stumbled upon an open field where I could see the sunset. Just as I settled in, my friend called, "Hey, how's the trip going?" But you asked. I had given her a duplicate key and informed her of the situation beforehand. She was furious and offered to come pick me up, but I declined. I appreciated her offer, but I knew leaving now would mean Kate getting exactly what she wanted. Unsure of what Kate might do next, I decided to consult a lawyer. I sent him the evidence of the mistreatment, preparing to pursue a case for emotional abuse. If it turned out that Kate's actions were premeditated, she would be asked to leave after the trip. I couldn't find a legal claim, but I had solid evidence that should have supported my case. The lawyer assured me that I had grounds to proceed if I chose to. After the call, the mental and physical exhaustion hit me hard, and I collapsed onto the fresh grass. I spent the night in an open field with a stunning view and a cool breeze, feeling both the beauty and the weight of the situation. The next morning I met up with Kate and my family just in time for checkout. "Emily, did you actually sleep in the woods? I bet you didn't even clean up. You're so filthy," Kate sneered. Spencer tried to intervene, but Kate quickly shifted the topic. It was clear he had mentioned that pushing me out was excessive. Kate gushed about how nice the hotel had been, but Scene's smile was my only comfort as we headed home. Once we arrived, Kate immediately began to yell, "What's all this? Don't mess with me." Rules were posted all over the house, and it was evident she had seen them as her face flushed with anger. When Spencer showed her the IO, her face went pale and her mouth fell open in shock. At first, she tried to deny everything, but when pressed, she confessed to squandering her husband's life insurance money and borrowing more once it ran out. Spencer and I proceeded with our plan. "I can't have someone with debt living with us," I said. "You need to leave. And since I have evidence of how you've mistreated me, I will be suing you." I played the recording for her. As she listened, her face turned ghostly white, and she begged me to let her stay. I told her she could remain if she adhered to the rules and refrained from aggressive behavior. She eagerly agreed and apologized profusely. "I'm so sorry. Please help me." I never thought I'd see her like this, I thought, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. When I thought the ordeal was finally over, my knees gave way, and I collapsed to the floor. Spencer quickly helped me into a chair and then began to confront Kate about her debts. It was clear that his respect and trust in her had shattered. Kate, who had never imagined facing such a fierce rebuke from her son, frantically apologized. Once everything was settled, she fell silent, staring blankly at the sky for the rest of the day. The atmosphere in our home changed dramatically the next morning. I woke up early as usual and started preparing breakfast. Kate, however, made a cutting remark right away. The difference was in Spencer's response. "Mom, we talked about this yesterday," he said firmly, causing Kate to fall silent and retreat to the sofa. I almost felt a pang of amusement at the sight, but I managed to stay focused on preparing breakfast. Spencer was grappling with guilt for not protecting me and struggling to stand up to his mother. Despite this, I knew he was a kind man, and there must have been reasons for his previous inaction. I couldn't bring myself to hate him for it. He tearfully apologized to me, and from then on, he supported me and kept a closer watch on Kate. Her attitude toward me improved daily. While she still made occasional comments, they lacked malice. I hoped this new dynamic would last. For the first time, I could breathe easily and maintain a healthy mindset. The debt repayment was set at $700 a month. Spencer and I worked together to manage it as Kate was too elderly to work. I took a part-time job to balance work and home life, and Kate took responsibility for taking Scene to and from daycare. She did a good job with this. Spencer took over managing the family finances, which helped improve our situation little by little. No matter how much you love your husband, dealing with a difficult mother-in-law can make you consider divorce. Although I couldn't bring myself to do that, I reflected on how much easier life could have been if I had acted sooner. Still, finding that IO was a turning point that helped me rebuild my family. I was grateful to my friend for her support and encouragement. Without her, I might have faced a mental breakdown. I deeply cherish our friendship. Looking back, I feel a sense of accomplishment for holding my family together through the tough times. Even when I was exhausted and unmotivated, I made sure to fulfill my responsibilities to ensure a decent life for everyone. Though I may never fully forgive Kate, I intend to treat her kindly as my mother-in-law. Years have passed and my son has started preschool. We are nearing the end of paying off the debt and considering a move to a new house. Kate has begun helping me more, and my relationship with Spencer has improved significantly. We're even contemplating having another child. Our family is stable now, and I'm content with our progress. I will continue to do my best for my family, always striving to support and nurture them.
In an era long past, there existed a rigid belief that a woman's worth hinged solely on her ability to bear children within the initial years of marriage. This archaic notion, however, stands in stark contrast to the progressive values of modern society. Regrettably, remnants of this outdated mindset still linger, perpetuating the harmful stereotype that a woman's purpose rests solely in her ability to conceive and give birth. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Ashley, a 25-year-old homemaker. Despite my tender age, I find myself unable to conceive. My journey has been marred by physical frailty since childhood, rendering me frequently absent from school due to illness. The consequence of my fragile constitution left me withdrawn, with pallid skin and a slight frame, a stark contrast to the vibrant health of my elder sister, Emily, who garnered all the affection and attention from our parents. Emily, a year my senior, embodied the epitome of vitality with her cherubic cheeks and enchanting gaze. Meanwhile, I languished in the shadow of my siblings' robustness, deemed by my parents as a defective entity, a burden they wished would soon be lifted. Their affections lavished solely upon Emily, I was relegated to the sidelines, a mere afterthought in their eyes. In times past, there persisted a belief: a woman who could conceive after 3 years of marriage was deemed worthless. Such notions now appear woefully outdated in the context of modern society. It's a regressive mindset, one that sadly endures, where some still harbor the assumption that all women should and will bear children, stigmatizing those unable to do so as worthless. My name is Ashley. I'm a 25-year-old housewife, incapable of conceiving. My journey has been fraught with frailty since childhood, rendering me frequently sickly and weak. With little physical vigor, school often eluded me, leaving me isolated and shy with pallid skin and a slender frame. My parents regarded me as defective and despised my existence, showering affection solely upon my older sister Emily, who, unlike me, enjoyed robust health with rosy cheeks and luminous eyes. I too possessed large eyes, though my frailty cast them in a sickly light. Amidst our affluent upbringing, my parents doted solely on Emily, indulging her every whim while I languished in neglect. Left behind on family excursions due to my frail health, I remained an outsider, deprived of familial mementos. It was a torment, being deemed defective by those who should have offered solace. With no friends to confide in, loneliness became my constant companion. Upon reaching adulthood, my parents swiftly arranged my marriage to Kevin, who received a sizable sum in exchange for caring for a weak, infertile spouse like me. Kevin, ensnared in financial woes, wed me for financial gain. As a full-time housewife, I'd often pondered his true intentions, for he returned home late and inebriated, showing no semblance of affection. You should count yourself fortunate, they'd remind me, echoing my parents' sentiments of worthlessness due to infertility. Yet, despite years of marriage, the prospect of pregnancy remained elusive, a poignant reminder of my perceived inadequacy. Despite the cold treatment from my husband Kevin, there was a beacon of warmth in my married life. It came in the form of my father-in-law, brother-in-law, and his wife, who showed me kindness. My father-in-law, having known me since my marriage at the tender age of 20, embraced me as his own daughter. Meanwhile, my brother-in-law Mike and his wife Maria extended genuine concern towards me, with Maria's care shining particularly bright. Ashley, you need not conform to others' expectations like a lifeless doll, Mike, employed in a reputable firm, would often remind me. Maria, juggling her own career and managing her interior design office, exuded boundless warmth and cheer. Her caring nature prompted her frequent visits to check up on me, recognizing my solitude and loneliness. What began as simple tea sessions and chats evolved into meaningful lessons and guidance. Consider pursuing the qualification, even if it's a hobby, Maria encouraged me. Initially disheartened by my lack of formal education, I expressed my doubts. Sensing my despondency, Maria offered sage advice. Mastering basic household tasks is a foundation for tackling anything. Learning breeds confidence. Inspired by Maria's words, I embarked on studying for a color certification, a step towards newfound skills and self-assurance. Little did I know, my father-in-law had sought counsel from Mike and Maria regarding my well-being, a testament to their unwavering support. Ashley has a tendency to underestimate herself. It's crucial to find a way to boost her confidence, remarked my father-in-law thoughtfully. Introducing her to new areas of study could be a catalyst, Maria chimed in, her voice brimming with optimism. Mike and my father-in-law readily embraced her suggestion. Though my parents had often deemed me weak and slow-witted, I discovered a newfound joy in learning. With each certification exam I conquered during my spare moments, a glimmer of confidence illuminated my spirit. Passing those tests brought me immense joy, shattering the belief that I was incapable of achieving anything. Eager to delve deeper into my studies and reach greater heights, I shared my aspirations with Kevin, only to be met with derision. Must be nice to indulge in useless studying. Kevin's dismissive words no longer pierced me with their usual sting. Instead, they ignited a flame of anger within me, unleashing years of suppressed emotions. Is that the sentiment one expresses when living off his wife's family's wealth? I retorted, a departure from my usual submissive demeanor. Caught off guard by my uncharacteristic sarcasm, Kevin recoiled, his facade of dominance crumbling in the face of truth. Shut up. I'm nothing like you, a defective product. I'll make something of myself. Kevin's words echoed through the room, laden with anger and defiance. Unfazed by his outburst, I retorted, they say big mouths like yours are all talk. Enraged by my defiance, Kevin lashed out, kicking the wall before storming out, likely seeking solace in drink and revelry. Reflecting on my predicament, I couldn't help but rule my parents' choice of partner for me. Yet their disregard for their frail daughter hinted at their flawed judgment. Marrying Kevin proved to be a grave error, aligning me with a man who squandered my family's wealth for his own pleasure. Ironically, it was Kevin's own family that offered me newfound perspective. Following the confrontation, Kevin vanished for days, presumably with my sister Emily. Despite knowing of their affair, I remained passive, for my parents' unwavering favoritism towards Emily allowed the illicit relationship to persist. Emily, having relinquished custody of her child after divorce, still basked in my parents' affection, a fact that facilitated her clandestine liaison with Kevin. The intentions of my parents, Emily and Kevin, were glaringly evident to me. It seemed they were orchestrating a scenario where Kevin would eventually divorce me. If Emily were to conceive, my parents would undoubtedly prioritize her desires over my well-being. Anticipating the inevitable day when my sister would abscond with my husband, I steeled myself, confident in my ability to withstand the impending storm. Sometime later, we convened at my father-in-law's residence. While I maintained regular visits, Kevin's absence from his family home had become conspicuous. Consumed by pride, Kevin incessantly measured himself against his brother Mike, a graduate of a prestigious university now employed by a major corporation. Though neither my father-in-law nor Mike ever addressed this disparity, Kevin harbored a deep-seated sense of inadequacy. Initially, Kevin had taken pride in marrying into wealth, viewing me as a symbol of his ascent. However, my father-in-law remained indifferent to his son's status, showering affection upon me while adopting a stern demeanor towards Kevin. Though he lavished praise upon Maria, Mike's wife, for her accomplishments, beneath the veneer of admiration lay a simmering jealousy towards his brother's life. Maria is truly remarkable, successful in her career, a devoted mother, and an accomplished woman. Ashley, on the other hand, lacks intelligence and competence, Kevin would remark, thinly veiling his flattery towards Maria with insults directed at me. Though Maria appeared visibly perturbed by his words, she gracefully brushed off Kevin's disparaging remarks. Ashley is my sister as well, and I find it unacceptable when she's insulted, Maria asserted firmly, her tone brooking no argument. Mike, nodding in solidarity, echoed her sentiment. Kevin, before comparing Maria and Ashley, consider your own actions, Mike cautioned, his words laced with concern. With a dismissive click of his tongue, Kevin's immaturity became glaringly apparent, leaving me feeling profoundly embarrassed. My father-in-law, his gaze clouded with bitterness, had always treated his sons equally. Yet their disparate paths had left him disheartened. Though he had confided his frustrations to me in the past, today he found his voice, reproaching Kevin sternly. Have you no shame, Kevin, relying on Ashley's family wealth while shirking your responsibilities? Ashley is a devoted wife. If you're to be a husband, you must learn to support yourself. It's a simple concept, he admonished, his words tinged with disappointment. Flushed with anger, Kevin retorted defensively, "Dad, Ashley was useless, a burden. I'm merely returning the favor." Mike, speaking on behalf of his father, delivered a cutting blow. "Kevin, as your brother, I'm compelled to tell you, your mindset is toxic." Normally quick to anger, Kevin's response was met with a rare silence, broken only by his cursing and abrupt departure. As I moved to intervene, my father-in-law held me back with a heavy sigh. "I'm sorry, Ashley. I had hoped marriage would instill in him a sense of responsibility, but it seems that's not the case." With weary shoulders, Mike and Maria slumped beside my father-in-law, mirroring his heavy sigh. Quietly, I lowered my head, preparing to depart, but Maria intercepted me with a reassuring touch. "Don't worry, Ashley. Everything is arranged," she assured me with a gentle smile. Nodding in gratitude, I left my father-in-law's abode, returning to the tumultuous atmosphere of my home, where Kevin's rage had left a trail of destruction. The room bore the scars of Kevin's tantrum, strewn with wreckage as he drunkenly bellowed his intentions. "I'm divorcing you, the barren one. Emily will be my new wife," he proclaimed triumphantly, reveling in the supposed consent my parents had given. So, Kevin had indeed chosen Emily. My parents had always catered to her whims, even at the cost of my marriage. They didn't object. Kevin had been well aware of my infertility when he married me, exploiting me for his convenience. Yet it was Emily who desired Kevin, and my parents tacitly condoned their affair. Perhaps now craving grandchildren, they saw Emily's potential pregnancy as an opportunity to unite her with Kevin. Such manipulative machinations were within my parents' capability. When Emily divorced previously, she relinquished custody of her child, deeming them unattractive due to their lack of attachment to her. Emily was self-absorbed, prioritizing her own desires above all else, even her own child. My heart ached for the potential plight of the child born to Emily and Kevin, envisaging a future overshadowed by their self-centeredness. Would such selfish parents be capable of fostering genuine happiness in their offspring? I pondered. Kevin, oblivious to my concerns, derided me, urging me to depart as we finalized our divorce proceedings. "I'll pay you alimony, you worthless," he sneered, oblivious to the fact that it would be my parents providing financial support. With a heavy heart, I signed the divorce papers, gathered my essentials, and bid farewell to the house. Choosing to forego seeking solace at my parents' abode, I sought refuge in the comforting embrace of Mike and Maria. I had confided in them about my suspicions regarding Kevin and Emily's affair, a notion Mike reluctantly entertained. Sensing the urgency of the situation, Maria had already begun preparations for my arrival. As I stepped into their home, their shy son peeked out briefly before retreating into hiding. He bore a striking resemblance to Maria and exuded an endearing shyness. Gathering around the table, we deliberated on our plans for the future. Maria, ever the pragmatic thinker, had secured a living arrangement for me, ensuring my safety and well-being amidst the tumult of divorce. With gratitude swelling in my heart, I found solace in the unwavering support of Mike and Maria, determined to navigate the uncertain road ahead with their guidance. I settled into the company housing provided by Maria's interior design firm, preparing to embark on a new chapter as an employee there. Despite my apprehension about entering the workforce for the first time, Maria's reassuring smile offered a beacon of encouragement. "Don't worry, Ashley, you've got this," she reassured me with unwavering confidence. Under Maria's nurturing guidance and Mike's administrative support, I severed all ties with my family following the divorce. Mike took charge of informing my former father-in-law of our decision, emphasizing our collective disassociation from Kevin. Though saddened by the turn of events, my former father-in-law understood and extended an open invitation for me to continue visiting, now that Kevin was no longer a part of our lives. Thus, I formally liberated myself from the shackles of marriage and embraced newfound independence. With alimony from Kevin and severance funds from my parents, I embarked on my journey towards self-sufficiency. Refusing to rely on my parents' financial support any longer, I returned the severance money untouched, determined to forge my path independently. Embracing my role at Maria's firm, I began by learning the ropes under the tutelage of one of her subordinates, Stephen. A jovial companion around my age, Stephen imparted his knowledge between his hectic schedule, fostering a sense of camaraderie as we navigated the intricacies of the job together. One morning, I arrived at the office early and took the initiative to tidy up, much to Stephen's surprise. "Wow, the office looks immaculate," he exclaimed, pitching in to assist with the cleaning. When I offered an apologetic explanation, he tilted his head in confusion. "Why apologize when you've done nothing wrong? We're equals here. We work together," he remarked, his words a revelation. It was the first time someone had acknowledged me as an equal. With my history of feeling inferior due to my frailty and inability to conceive, I had always carried a sense of burden. Yet Stephen, with his competence, should have held a higher position, yet he dismissed my concerns with a laugh, emphasizing our equality through collaboration. It was a humbling realization, encountering such kindness and generosity. As we conversed, Maria arrived a bit earlier than usual, casting an observant eye over Stephen and me with a knowing smile. "Ah, Stephen, have you finally gotten to know Ashley better?" she teased, causing Stephen to blush furiously. Perplexed by Maria's comment, I remained clueless until she leaned in to whisper, "Stephen has been wanting to speak with you alone. He's been waiting for the opportunity." Stephen, flustered by Maria's revelation, muttered, "Director, we agreed you wouldn't mention that," before hastily excusing himself to the break room. With a playful slap on my shoulder, Maria left me standing there, utterly bewildered. It wasn't until the realization dawned upon me, coloring my cheeks with embarrassment, that Maria quipped, "Stephen is quite the gentleman. It seems he's taken a liking to you since the day you stepped into the office." "I may be divorced, and I certainly have my flaws," Maria admitted, casting a meaningful glance at Stephen, who stood beside her, presenting her with a freshly brewed cafe latte. She then tenderly patted my bowed head before disclosing a surprising revelation. "You see, the son Maria and Mike have been raising isn't actually their biological child," she confessed, her words carrying a weight of sincerity. "He's a relative's child, taken in after his parents tragically perished in an accident. Essentially, he's been adopted into our family." Maria and Mike had made the conscious decision to prioritize raising a child who had lost everything. As Maria spoke, her gaze shifting between Stephen and me, her voice resonated with warmth and compassion. "When our son first called us Dad and Mom, I couldn't help but shed tears," she revealed, her emotions palpable. "Parenting isn't solely defined by biological ties. Even with blood relations, there are instances where parents and children remain distant. But our son chose us as his parents, not by obligation but by genuine affection. To me, that's far more precious than any bond forged solely through blood." With a gentle sip of the cafe latte prepared by Stephen, I found solace in its warm and soothing aroma, the tension in my heart easing with each comforting sip. Fast forward about 3 years from that moment, and my life had taken a significant turn. I found love again and tied the knot with Stephen just a year after we embarked on our journey together. Yet, when I once again found myself apologizing for my inability to conceive, Stephen's reaction caught me off guard. "Ashley, there's no need for apologies," he chided gently, his tone laced with warmth. "Would you expect me to kneel down and apologize for not being able to have children?" His words resonated deeply within me, dispelling the weight of guilt that I had carried for so long. With a shake of my head, I found solace in his laughter, his cheerful demeanor a balm to my soul. His simple reassurance became a beacon of hope, illuminating the path forward that I had never dared to imagine. Despite remarrying, I remained connected with Maria, Mike, and my former father-in-law. Their unwavering support and genuine happiness for my newfound happiness warmed my heart. Today, we found ourselves on a short trip, exploring a tourist spot that Maria had once described as delightful during her own family visits. As I sat in a chair, patiently awaiting Stephen's return from the restroom, I savored a moment of tranquility at a nearby tea shop, grateful for the love and companionship that now graced my life. Suddenly, a familiar voice pierced through the tranquil ambience. "Ashley," it called out, shattering the peaceful moment. Turning around, I found myself face to face with Kevin, my ex-husband, accompanied by my sister Emily. Emily, adorned in heavy makeup, still possessed her trademark beauty, though it seemed somewhat exaggerated. "You're still moping around, traveling alone after the divorce," she remarked, unaware of my recent remarriage. Ignoring their presence, I eagerly awaited my husband's return from the restroom. Upon his arrival, my husband, perplexed by the unexpected company, apologized for the crowded restroom. His puzzled expression spoke volumes, silently questioning the identity of our uninvited guests. Desperate to depart from the uncomfortable encounter, I urged my husband to leave, hoping to avoid further confrontation. Yet Emily's derisive tone cut through the air as she mocked me for finding another partner despite my perceived shortcomings. Attempting to maintain composure, my husband intervened, asserting his role as my spouse. "I am Ashley's husband," he declared firmly, his gaze unwavering. "And her name is now Ashley Stevens. Furthermore, we are expecting a child." With a gentle pat on my belly, he unveiled our joyous news, leaving Kevin visibly pale. Emily, however, responded with a sneer, casting doubt on the well-being of our unborn child. In a steely tone, my husband responded, "Ashley is currently expecting her second child. Our eldest daughter is a healthy 2-year-old currently in the care of my parents." Kevin's complexion drained at the revelation, mirroring my own astonishment. The news of my second pregnancy had initially caught me off guard. I vividly recall my disbelief when the doctor at the maternity clinic confirmed my ability to conceive, contrary to the beliefs instilled in me by my parents. My parents had always led me to believe that I was unable to bear children, a notion I had unquestioningly accepted. Yet it turned out that my body was perfectly capable of conception. When I shared the news with my husband, he was elated. However, it left me wondering why I had never conceived during my marriage to Kevin. Seeking answers, I confided in Maria, who, after a moment of contemplation, voiced a troubling hypothesis. According to Maria, there was a possibility that my parents had deceived me all along. It was likely that they had discouraged me from having children, fearing the potential complications that could arise from my fragile health. In fact, they might have gone as far as instructing Kevin to use contraception to prevent pregnancy. It was a shocking revelation, one that shed light on the manipulative tactics employed by my own family. Having remarried, Stephen and I welcomed a healthy baby girl into our family, followed by a son during my second pregnancy, both of whom thrived. Yet, despite the joy of motherhood, I couldn't shake off the lingering burden of guilt stemming from my parents' deceitful machinations. As Stephen and I prepared to depart, Emily's cruel words pierced through the air, her smirk laden with malice. Had terminated Kevin's pregnancy. It was a botched attempt, she jeered callously, admitting to aborting the fetus due to potential disabilities. Kevin, desperate and pleading, implored me to relinquish one of my children, fearing he would be disowned otherwise. Emily's laughter echoed with malicious glee. Fueled by rage, I was on the verge of erupting, but Stephen's firm grip on my arm halted me. With a contemptuous glare at Kevin and Emily, Stephen's voice dripped with disdain. "Save your vile remarks for your own demise," he spat out, his disgust palpable. Without another word, he guided me away, refusing to dignify their cruelty with a response. I followed suit, casting a final disdainful glance over my shoulder, feeling as though I had glimpsed the depths of depravity reserved for their unborn child. In due time, I welcomed a baby boy into the world, adding to the challenges of caring for my 2-year-old daughter and newborn son. Despite the demands of motherhood, my husband stood by my side, offering his unwavering support. Meanwhile, my ex-husband Kevin found himself deserted by Emily, left to fend for himself as his financial woes mounted. Rejected by my former father-in-law and brother-in-law when he sought assistance, Kevin's predicament left them dumbfounded. As for my selfish parents and sister Emily, their actions eventually led to their downfall. Emily's reckless pursuits, including affairs with married men, resulted in numerous lawsuits and hefty alimony payments. Gradually, her fortune dwindled, and her reputation crumbled. Unable to intervene, my parents watched helplessly as Emily's actions drained their assets. To compound matters, Emily's ill-advised dealings with a dubious company left her ensnared in a web of debt, pursued by relentless creditors. My parents and Emily have fallen on hard times, but their plight no longer weighs on me. They are mere blood ties, estranged from my true family, my loving husband and our 2 precious children. Their well-being is my sole concern now. As I tended to our son's needs, my husband delighted in play with our daughter, their laughter filling our home. Observing their joyous interaction, a wave of gratitude washed over me. Caught up in the moment, I found myself smiling uncontrollably. My husband, noticing my expression, inquired, "What's on your mind, Ashley?" "I'm just overwhelmed with happiness to be with you, Stephen," I confessed. With a playful grin, he teased, "Well, you're Mrs. Stephen too." His light-hearted remark elicited laughter from all of us, filling our hearts with warmth and contentment. "Let me introduce her. This is my girlfriend, Emily," Tom said with a smile. The woman beside him greeted everyone. "Nice to meet you all." "Your girlfriend?" I was in shock. Tom casually responded. Oh, right, I haven't told you. I'm going to marry Emily, so I want a divorce. What? I was too stunned to speak. Tom continued. I realized my parents were right. Being with an older woman like you is getting tough. Emily's young, she's 23. New houses and women are always better, right? Emily nodded in agreement. And about the accident you mentioned, it's no big deal, right? You broke a bone and now you're slacking off at home. We'll take the house once we divorce. I was so shocked by his outrageous comments that I forgot to get angry. It was impossible to continue the conversation. Taking a deep breath, I presented a signed divorce document and said, Okay, here are the divorce papers. Oh, you're well prepared, Tom said, jubilant. Leaving the couple behind, I began preparing to leave the house immediately. As I was packing, Tom spoke up. You have nowhere to go, right? There's an apartment near the station within the range of $100. It's old and has cracks in the walls, though. Tom, that's so mean, Emily chimed in. The two of them laughed ignorantly. I didn't respond and slammed the front door. Let them laugh. I have places to go, places they could never imagine. My name is Catherine White. I'm turning 40 this year. I married Tom when I was 35, 3 years ago. We don't have kids and live together in the house I bought when I was single. It's secondhand but refurbished and quite clean. Why did I buy a house before getting married? It goes back to my childhood. We were poor because my father was gone. To be precise, he disappeared before I could remember him. I lived with my mother, who loved me deeply, but life was tough with just the two of us. Still, having my mother was enough. But during my high school years, she passed away due to an illness. It was devastating, but I had no time to mourn. I had to survive on my own. After graduating from high school, I started working at a small advertising agency. I worked tirelessly in sales. In my 30s, I was so dedicated to work that I never imagined I'd marry, but I wanted a place to call my own, so I saved up and bought a cheap house. I had to take out a loan, but I paid it off early. Around that time, I met Tom. He was from a client company. Tom seemed unreliable to me since he was 5 years younger, but he admired my work ethic. We started seeing each other. It was surprising but also delightful. I had never had anyone openly express their feelings for me before. We started dating and quickly got married. At first, Tom's parents disapproved of our marriage. I was older, and they knew I had no family. But Tom defended me, saying, even if she has no parents, Catherine works hard. Don't say such things. I was genuinely happy. I thought we could make it work. But that changed. The shift in Tom's behavior began less than 6 months after we moved in together. One evening, after returning from work, he sat down at the dining table. Dinner was meat and potatoes, a salad, and eggplant soup. After eating for a while, Tom stopped. What's wrong? I have been meaning to say this. The soup, it's from this morning, right? I don't like leftovers. Can you make a fresh one for dinner? But it takes time. I also work and I might not make it in time. Sorry, but that sounds like an excuse. My mother always made different soups for breakfast and dinner, and there should be at least 5 side dishes. Can you do that? I was taken aback by the sudden situation. I had felt this way for a while, but kept it to myself. While I'm not great at cooking, it's hard to do intricate dishes while working too. Your mother is a full-time housewife, right? I work and can't cook that much. That's why you shouldn't make excuses. It's expected of a housewife. You should at least do that much. I was frustrated by Tom's outdated views, but I held back my words to avoid worsening the mood, though I was discontent. I wanted to avoid arguments, so I started finishing work on time and rushing home to cook. However, Tom's actions and words became increasingly demanding. Did you use cheap meat for this? This side dish is the same as yesterday. Please space them out at least a week. With each of his complaints, the time I spent cooking became more overwhelming. Before I knew it, I was spending all day thinking about meals. Tom's nitpicking didn't stop at just food. He checked every corner of the house for dust and criticized my cleaning. If you have so many complaints, why don't you do it yourself? I finally snapped. What are you saying? Housework isn't my job. Don't shift the responsibility. Maybe you can't handle chores because you didn't have parents around. I was stunned by his words. He had never belittled me for not having parents before. Was this Tom's true nature? The man I knew before felt like an illusion. Regardless, I wished for the old Tom to return, but the situation only worsened. With Tom's endless demands, I was completely drained, and balancing work seemed impossible. On Tom's suggestion, I decided to quit my job. I had loved that job since graduating from high school, but it seemed there was no choice. Looking back, maybe I should have left him then. But I had always prioritized work over romance and didn't know what a normal family looked like. I thought perhaps meeting Tom's demands was a housewife's duty. Maybe all I had to do was bear it a bit to maintain a peaceful home. Now that I was a full-time housewife, I had much more time for housework. Tom's complaints decreased and I was genuinely relieved. I thought the problem was solved, but my friends knew Haas. It's so spacious and beautiful. The furniture was designed by famous designers and the appliances are all luxury items, they said. Oh really? I casually responded, handing Tom a glass of water. But compared to that, our second-hand house is a bit lacking. I wish we could at least replace this cheap furniture, Tom remarked. Cheap? The furniture and appliances were from my single days, but they were still in good condition. They weren't luxury items, but they weren't cheap either. Moreover, when Tom moved in, he had said, "Let's keep using these appliances and furniture." I reminded him of that, but he brushed it off. But honestly, after living with it, I feel new furniture would be better, he said without hesitation. Even if you say that, the current ones are still usable, I softly pointed out. Tom suddenly looked at me with a mocking expression. That's the frugal side of you. I wonder if you're just naturally stingy. What? Why would you say that? Anyway, I've quit my job, so we don't have that kind of money. You quit your job because you wanted to, didn't you? But you? Yeah, it's always my fault, he muttered dismissively and staggered off to the bedroom. How could he say such things? Anger started to boil within me, but then I thought maybe he's just drunk. He's just being brave because he's drunk. Don't mind. However, even when he was sober, Tom's attitude was getting worse. Our conversations became more hostile, and every time he spoke, it was to complain about me. What on earth happened to him? Then, without telling me, Tom went ahead and bought new furniture. On top of that, it seems he also got new golf equipment. He looked at the golf clubs with satisfaction, clearly pleased with himself. Tom has a regular job, but he doesn't earn much. He probably took out a loan now that I can't work. I was worried about repaying the loan. Anxiety grew in my heart. Then an unexpected event occurred. As usual, I was on my way to the supermarket to buy ingredients for dinner. While walking on the road, a loud horn blared from behind. Immediately after, I felt a huge impact, and then darkness consumed my consciousness. When I came to, I was staring at an unfamiliar ceiling. It seemed I was lying down. I felt pain everywhere and couldn't move. What happened to me? I wondered aloud. Oh, Miss White, have you awakened? A voice said. Where am I? You're in the hospital. You were brought in after a traffic accident. Traffic accident? I remembered leaving the house, but nothing after that. I moved my head slightly, taking in the impersonal bed, the attached IV drip, and the woman in a nurse's uniform. Was this really a hospital? Looking outside, it was already dark. I had left the house around 2 p.m., so a lot of time had passed. Later, a doctor came and briefly explained the situation. It seemed I was hit by a car whose driver was not paying attention while I was on my way to the supermarket. I didn't have life-threatening injuries, but I had several fractures and needed to be hospitalized for a while. I never imagined being in a traffic accident. After receiving an explanation about the hospitalization, the nurse spoke up. We've contacted your husband. From her hesitant expression, I had a bad premonition. I immediately called Tom. Hello, Tom. Yeah, Catherine. I got a call from the hospital. You had an accident. You're so clumsy. Come home quickly and make dinner. What? I'm going to be hospitalized from now on. I couldn't understand what he was saying, and when I retorted, Tom shouted back, Then what about the housework? What are you saying? Is the housework more important than me? Unbelievable. He was more concerned about the housework than his wife's condition. I felt myself becoming increasingly angry, and it soon turned into a quarrel. Arguing any further would be pointless, so I hung up the phone, still frustrated. Lately, Tom had been more harsh in his words, but I never realized he could be this cold. That day, I was filled with anger and physical pain, making it hard to sleep. But as the days went by, my strength gradually returned, and I started rehabilitation. Initially, moving was tough, but it became surprisingly enjoyable as I got used to it. Lying in bed, I often found myself lost in thought, so rehab was a welcome distraction. However, since that incident, I hadn't heard from Tom. I thought talking to him would just anger me, so I ignored him. Around that time, I occasionally passed an elderly man in the hallway. He was well dressed, so he wasn't a patient. I assumed he was visiting someone and didn't give it much thought, but he seemed to be looking my way. Are you Catherine White? Yes, I am. What can I do for you? I answered cautiously. At that time, I had no idea that this man would change my fate. Eventually, after about a month in the hospital, I was discharged. I hadn't fully recovered, but I was told all patient care would surface. I was finally going home after a month away. My home felt oddly nostalgic, but that feeling was short-lived. The moment I opened the door, I felt something was off. There were unfamiliar shoes, heels with flashy pink ribbons. Could it be? Rushing into the living room, I braced myself for what I might find. I noticed the entire house had changed. Not just the furniture, but even the electronics had been replaced with brand new, high-end models. The curtains were different too, making it feel like someone else's house. Ah, Catherine, you've been discharged. Tom emerged from the back, sitting casually. Next to him was a young woman. The woman with brown hair and a revealing outfit spoke lazily. Welcome back. Who are you? I was stunned. Tom smiled. Oh, let me introduce you. This is my girlfriend, Emily. Nice to meet you, she added. Your girlfriend? Yeah, I guess I never mentioned it. I am planning to marry Emily, so I want a divorce. What? I was at a loss for words. I've come to realize that what my parents said was right. Without proper parents, you can't manage household chores or finances properly. I thought you being older would be reliable, but living with an aunt has become tough. Emily's young, just 23. New homes and women are always better, right? Right. Emily tilted her head in agreement. And that accident of yours wasn't a big deal, right? Breaking a bone and then slacking on housework deserves a divorce. We'll be taking the house, by the way. Such outrageous statements left me too stunned to even get angry. Don't get me wrong, we're planning to buy a new house eventually, but this place is just a temporary one until then. When they say something as unreasonable as this, I lose all desire to even converse with them. The old Tom is gone. I've come to think of him as a monster, not a human with whom I can communicate. I shouldn't fight on the same level with them. I took a deep breath and presented a document. Okay, here are the divorce papers. Oh, you're well prepared. I had already signed the divorce papers in advance, considering the recent strange atmosphere. I thought this choice might come up eventually, so I quickly started packing my things. I needed to prepare to leave the house. As I was busy, Tom spoke to me. You don't have anywhere to go, right? There's an apartment near the station that rents for $100. It's run down and has cracks in the walls, though. Tom, that's so mean, Emily chimed in. Ignoring their mocking laughter, I slammed the front door with force. I took a moment to look back at the house, my castle that I worked hard to buy. Today is the last day I'll see it, but I had no regrets. I had a place to go. A week later, while relaxing in my new place, the doorbell rang loudly. Checking the monitor, I saw it was Tom and Emily. Ignoring them, I heard them shouting my name. Their frenzied state made me want to laugh. After observing for a while, I spoke over the intercom. What do you want? Why are you living in such a mansion? Tom asked. The mansion he referred to was where I currently lived. A 3-story building made of reinforced concrete on a massive plot, complete with a swimming pool. You came all the way here just to say that? No, I have a proposal. Open up. I want to talk face to face. It's probably just nonsense. No, it's important, Tom insisted. Annoyed with Tom's persistence, I thought this would be the last time and opened the door. I led them to the living room. I had been in touch with Tom about the change of house ownership, but I never told him where I lived. When I asked how he found out, it seemed he coincidentally saw me in town and followed me. He was expecting to see me entering a shabby apartment, but was shocked to see me entering this mansion. Tom, along with Emily, had concocted a bold plan. Tell me, are you living in this mansion because of some shady job? What? Why? I was taken aback by Tom's absurd claim. I saw you. You were with an old man entering this house. I get it. You don't want to admit it. You're poor, so you had to find that kind of work, right? But if you have such a wealthy client, I want you to introduce him to Emily. I work in a cabaret club, so I'm good at charming older men. I'm sure I can earn more than you, Catherine. What are you both talking about? The man you saw me with is probably my father. This house is also my father's house. What? That's a lie. You don't have parents, Tom insisted loudly, just as the door to the reception room opened. Seeing the middle-aged man who emerged, I called out, "Dad." "My father," I explained quickly. Surprised, my father sat next to me and greeted Tom. "Ah, you must be Tom. My daughter spoke of you before. Nice to meet you. I'm Catherine's father, Robert Johnson." "Wait, what's going on?" Tom looked back and forth between me and my father, his eyes wide with surprise. "It's understandable. I only recently reunited with my father while I was in the hospital," I began, explaining the situation. Yes, the middle-aged man who spoke to me that day was my father. My father was supposed to have disappeared. I had been told so by my mother. I thought there might have been a mistake, but after speaking with this man, I realized he was my real father. To start a business, my father went to America. After a while, once his business was on track, he planned to bring us over, but he was robbed there, losing everything. He lost all his investment capital, and even his means of communication was cut off. Stranded, he fortunately met a man who offered him a job at his company. Starting with menial tasks, he gradually got promoted and eventually became the right-hand man to the company's CEO. With the help of this man, he later started his own business. The business was successful, and my father achieved social success. But he was always concerned about my mother and me. He felt guilty for leaving us for so long and found it hard to return. Then his company decided to start a new venture in Japan. After much thought, he decided to come back. He built a house here and started looking for me and my mother. He then discovered that my mother had passed away and was deeply regretful. If only he had come back sooner. Wishing to see me as soon as possible, he visited me in the hospital. Learning the truth, I ended up living in this mansion owned by my father. I briefly explained all this. By the way, my father had also looked into Tom's affair. After occasional golfing outings, Tom would go to a hostess club where he met Emily. "So, this is my family home. Understand, I never heard about you having a rich father all of a sudden," Tom murmured in a big voice. "So, if you have so much money, will you come to the club where I work?" Emily quickly tried to hand her business card to my father. True to the type of woman Tom would choose, she was incredibly bold. But my father stopped her immediately. "I'm sorry, but I make it a point not to visit cheap imitation bars." "What?" Emily was speechless. My father frequented some establishments for work, but only the finest, high-end places. He would never go to a cheap club like where Emily works. "Besides, I don't have money. Catherine inherited everything already." To the puzzled expressions of Tom and Emily, my father casually replied, "Around $800 million. It's the least I can do to make up for leaving her alone all this time." The two of them were dumbfounded, their mouths agape. "I've heard about you from Catherine, especially your insults," my father continued. "She worked hard, scrimping and saving from her meager salary to buy that house. She also did her best with household chores. Having no mother, she probably didn't get a chance to learn from anyone, yet you disparaged her and trampled on her feelings. I can't forgive you, especially when you cheated on her while you were married. If it comes to that, I can sue you." "But Tom attempted to interject. "Catherine's struggles were partly my fault too," my father continued, cutting him off. "You mocked me for being poor and for not having parents. I'm fed up with someone like you who lacks compassion. Never come back to this house again. Goodbye. Is there anything else you need? If you're done, can you leave?" I added firmly. "Huh? Help!" Tom and Emily screamed and ran away. Watching them go, my dad and I shared a laugh. It had been a while since I'd laughed so much. I knew I probably wouldn't see those two again. I could finally live in peace. Later, I found out about their subsequent misfortune. A typhoon hit the region where Tom and Emily lived, bringing heavy rain that flooded houses near overflowing rivers. Fortunately, my area wasn't affected, but their house suffered severe damage. Tom and Emily fled, but their expensive furniture, brand new golf equipment, and Emily's luxury items were all waterlogged. The house's pillars had rotted from being soaked for so long. With no place to stay, the two seemed to live in shelters for a while. Tom's family home was far away, and Emily's family situation was worse. Her parents were gambling addicts living in a tiny apartment. Emily, who worked at a nightclub, spent all her money. Tom was also in debt from buying expensive things. Tom, who relied on women for money, was now in trouble. The two, having no other options, had to move into a cheap apartment near the station that he had once told me about. It was ironic that Tom, who once mocked others, ended up living there. What you do to others will come back to you, I reflected. Unless they truly repent, they won't find peace. Meanwhile, I was thinking of job hunting since leaving my previous company. When I talked to my father about this, he offered me a position at his company. The job is in sales like before, and it's fulfilling. I'm still learning, but I work hard every day to be valuable. At my father's mansion, we often host home parties for business associates. My sales experience helps, and I can talk freely with anyone. I plan to work abroad in the future, so I'm also studying English. My father often tells me, "You look livelier now compared to when we reunited." It feels like a lie that I used to be so irritated every day when I was with Tom. Life is unpredictable, I concluded. Even if times are tough, they won't last forever. If you keep looking forward, someone will always be watching over you. I believe that, and I want to keep living brightly.
A year ago, we wholeheartedly vowed our love to one another. I made a commitment in my heart to share my life with this gentle-hearted man. However, post-marriage, his demeanor underwent a complete transformation. The affectionate partner I once knew seems to have vanished into thin air. Now, my husband regards me not as his beloved, but merely as a domestic servant. Just listen and remain silent has become his mantra. I ponder how much longer I can endure this existence. Little did I know then that a glimmer of hope would illuminate my path. My name is Michelle Jenkins, age 28. By day, I serve as a secretary in my father's company while shouldering the responsibilities of a homemaker. My father, having inherited the business from my grandfather 2 years prior, has always kept me at arm's length from suitors who are often attracted by wealth. I had grown weary of pretentious suitors and had stopped divulging my family background. Then I crossed paths with David. He was different, devoid of vices like gambling or smoking, and moderate in his drinking habits. He professed his love for me openly, filling me with hopes of a blissful future together. Despite my reservations, I chose to keep my lineage a secret, succumbing to my father's protective instincts. He feared I would be ensnared by yet another fortune seeker. Reluctantly, I agreed to reveal the truth after a year, as per my father's counsel. Thus, David and I exchanged vows under the shadow of my concealed identity. Yet, a year into our marriage, I still conceal the truth from him. For David is no longer the tender soul I fell in love with. His demeanor turned frigid and distant, his once endearing traits replaced by unrelenting criticism. Every aspect of my existence seemed subject to his disparagement, be it the meals I prepared or the household chores I diligently attended to. His demands grew increasingly unreasonable, his temper more volatile. The affectionate gazes were replaced by menacing glares. My attempts to reason were met with outbursts of rage. The joy I had envisioned in our union has been replaced by a suffocating atmosphere of tyranny. As I reflect upon our tumultuous journey, I am left questioning how much longer I can endure this oppressive existence. I found myself detained at work, and it was well past 7 p.m. by the time I finally arrived home. Upon announcing my arrival, I was met with a barrage of accusations. "You're late? What time do you call this?" he bellowed. I attempted to explain, "I'm sorry, work just became overwhelming. I'll start dinner right away." But my words were met with scorn. "A mere secretary like you doesn't have enough work to justify staying late," he retorted dismissively. Despite my protests that I was handling additional accounting tasks, his tirade continued. "Don't talk back to me. It's unthinkable for a woman to return home later than her husband. Next time, if you're later than me, you're quitting your job." Cowed by David's threats, I remained silent, suppressing any impulse to stand up for myself. Looking back, I questioned whether I should have mustered the courage to leave him sooner. But the weight of parental expectations loomed large in my mind. I had married in secrecy, unwilling to disappoint my parents, and so I bore the burden of my marital woes alone. Then one day during a break at work, my father summoned me to the reception room. Accustomed to assisting him as his secretary, I entered to find him waiting, wearing a contented smile. "What's up?" I inquired, puzzled by his expression. It's been a year since you married David, hasn't it? I believe it's time to honor our agreement and reveal the truth to him, my father remarked gently. Struggling to mask my inner turmoil, I admitted, yes, we did make that promise. But things are a bit complicated right now. Concern etched across my father's face. He reached out to reassure me. Did you and David have a disagreement? Newlyweds often face challenges, but your mother and I weathered our fair share of storms too. And look at us now, still happily together. I'm sure you'll be okay, Michelle, my father reassured me, his voice tinged with concern. It's not exactly a fight. Don't worry, everything will be all right. I mean, every couple has their share of arguments, right? Well, I suppose you're right, I conceded, trying to downplay the situation. Anything else bothering you? He inquired gently. No, nothing really. I'm okay. But I guess I want to wait for things to settle down a bit before I talk to him, I replied hesitantly. Don't let it get you down too much. A little marital spat is pretty common, my father offered, evidently believing our discord to be minor. Unwilling to burden my parents with the truth about my strained relationship with David, I had kept them in the dark until now. Consequently, my father seemed to think everything was going well between us. Well, you better make up with David soon, he advised before leaving the room, leaving me alone with my swirling emotions. I wrestled with the dilemma of how to navigate my increasingly troubled marriage without alarming my parents. Yet I knew I couldn't keep the facade up forever. That evening, I resolved to confront David. As he returned home and I finished preparing dinner, I broached the delicate subject. David, there's something I want to talk about. I began tentatively. Huh? I'm tired, he grumbled, clearly disinterested. It's important. Look, we're married, right? I want our relationship to be equal and for us to enjoy our lives together every day, I persisted. Equal? What are you talking about? There's no way you and I are equal, he retorted dismissively, seizing my hair and pulling it harshly. Ouch! I cried out, tears welling up in my eyes as he continued to grip my hair tightly. His words pierced through me like daggers as he continued, listen well. I'm the one who did you the favor of marrying you. Be grateful that I deemed to marry a plain and useless woman like you. But didn't you say you loved me? I choked out, my voice trembling with hurt. Don't make me laugh, he sneered, his contempt palpable. I just pretended to like you because you seemed obedient and would be a handy housekeeper. He spat out coldly, his words laced with disdain. That's not true. You just need to be quiet and listen to me, housekeeper, he declared, his grip tightening on my hair as he dragged me closer to his face. From that moment on, any hope of equality between us evaporated. I resigned myself to the grim reality, unwilling to burden my parents and unable to pursue a divorce. As days passed, my appetite waned, and I found solace only in the company of my roommate. Then, one morning, amidst the dreary routine, I awoke feeling utterly drained. My head throbbed, and a chill permeated my body. Taking my temperature, I discovered it had soared to a staggering 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Summoning what little strength remained, I called out to my husband, David, I'm sorry, but I don't think I can make breakfast today. What? Why not? He snapped, his irritation palpable. I got a fever of 104. I'm in so much pain. Can I just stay in bed for the day? I pleaded. At this, he emitted a long-suffering sigh before unleashing his wrath, slacking off chores because of a stupid fever. Get to work, you good-for-nothing. But please forgive me, I'm really sick, I implored, my voice trembling with weakness. Shut up, stop making excuses. You're just a housemaid. Don't you dare defy your master, he bellowed, his words stinging with contempt. Please, just for today, I'm begging you, I pleaded once more, but he merely clicked his tongue in disdain, slammed the door shut, and stormed out of the room. Left alone, my hands shook, and my body trembled uncontrollably, a prisoner to both sickness and despair. I came to a stark realization of just how close to the brink I was being pushed. If I continued down this path, I feared I would truly break down. The relentless pressure of living like this threatened to consume both my body and soul. I knew I needed to take action, but the question remained, what could I possibly do? My fever-addled mind struggled to conjure a solution amidst the haze of exhaustion. Perhaps it was the culmination of prolonged stress, but before I could formulate a plan, I succumbed to sleep once more. Several hours later, I was abruptly jolted awake by the thunderous sound of my husband's voice. "Hey, didn't I tell you to wake up, you dumb woman?" he roared. David?" I stammered, glancing outside to find darkness had descended. Though my fever had somewhat subsided, my body felt weighted and a dull ache persisted in my head. Despite my condition, he unleashed his fury. "I called you multiple times. What are you doing sleeping?" "Called? I must have missed it," I faltered, struggling to comprehend. "I sent you a text saying I'm bringing my boss home. Prepare drinks and snacks, didn't I?" he demanded, his tone seething with impatience. "Wait, you knew I was sick today, right? And yet you brought your boss home?" I questioned, incredulity lacing my words. "I invited him to continue drinking at home. My promotion depends on this. Get up and get things ready now," he commanded, seizing my arm and dragging me towards the kitchen. "No, I can't. I'm still in my pajamas, and I'm not feeling well at all," I protested weakly, futilely resisting his forceful grip. "Shut up, just get out here now," he barked, leaving me little choice but to comply. With a heavy heart and aching body, I trudged into the kitchen, where I was met with the daunting task of entertaining his boss. As he hurriedly greeted his guest, I couldn't help but overhear their conversation from the entrance. "Are you sure this is okay this late? I'm sure your wife wouldn't appreciate." His boss's voice trailed off, echoing my unspoken concerns. "I don't have a wife, just a housemaid," my husband declared casually, dismissing my presence entirely. Housemaid? Sort of like a main wife, you could say. But please don't mind," he added, ushering his boss into the living room. Caught off guard, I stood there in my pajamas, devoid of any makeup, feeling a flush of embarrassment wash over me. "Nice to meet you," I managed to mumble, bowing my head in apology. "My husband is always telling me about you. I apologize for my appearance." I'm the section chief, Mr. Smith. "I'm sorry for intruding so suddenly. Please, don't mind me." "I'll prepare something right away," Mr. Smith responded courteously. As I retreated to the kitchen, concealing my face, my husband's harsh voice pierced through the air. "Hey, get a move on and make something. You're absolutely useless," he scolded. "I'm sorry to just wait a little bit longer," I replied meekly, attempting to quell his ire. "Instead of opening your mouth, move your hands." Despite Mr. Smith's presence, my husband continued his disparaging remarks. "You're really useless," he muttered under his breath, each word like a dagger to my already wounded pride. In the brief moment my husband excused himself to the bathroom, Mr. Smith leaned in to address me. "Excuse me," he began tentatively. Startled, I turned to face him, my heart racing with apprehension. "Yes, is there something you need?" I asked, trying to maintain composure despite my inner turmoil. "You're the daughter of CEO Allen, aren't you?" he inquired, catching me off guard. "How did you?" I trailed off, my mind racing to comprehend his revelation. "I had previously visited your father's company regarding a business deal. You served me tea then, didn't you?" Mr. Smith continued, his words sending a jolt of recognition through me. "Wait, you were from that time?" I murmured, realization dawning upon me. I usually attended all interactions with our business partners. Each time, he confirmed, his expressions somber yet inquisitive. As I served tea, I was introduced as Mr. Allen's daughter, and Mr. Smith's recognition struck me. David's workplace had recently become a client of my father's company, yet I hadn't disclosed to my father that David worked for Smith. Glancing towards the bathroom, Mr. Smith lowered his voice to a hush. "What's up with your husband's behavior? Is he always like this at home?" "Yes, unfortunately," I admitted, shaken by the sudden candor. "I can't believe what you've been through. Why haven't you told Mr. Allen?" he questioned, concern evident in his voice. Regardless, we can't let this continue. Leave it to me. With resolve in his eyes, Mr. Smith swiftly gathered his belongings and departed, leaving me feeling as if a weight had been lifted. It was a moment of profound relief, as if I had finally found an ally. However, upon David's return from the bathroom, he was furious to find Mr. Smith gone. "Why didn't you stop him? You good for nothing?" he bellowed. Despite his rage, I chose to trust in Mr. Smith's assurance and endure. Several days later, I was summoned by my father to the company's reception room, where I found both Smith and a pale-faced David. Confused by the unexpected gathering, I waited anxiously as the atmosphere grew tense. My father's stern expression betrayed his disappointment as he addressed me. "I heard from Smith that you've been treated horribly by David, haven't you?" That is. I faltered, overwhelmed by the weight of the moment. "I understand you're kind-hearted and wanted to avoid worrying me, didn't you?" My father continued, his tone softening with understanding. "Dad, thank you," I managed, my voice choked with emotion. Smith bowed his head in acknowledgement, and my father's gaze turned to David, his words cutting like ice. "David, I can't believe you turned out to be such a scumbag. I shouldn't have let you marry my daughter." "Wait, please," David pleaded, visibly shaken. "I had no idea you were the president of our business partner." "I didn't know Michelle was the CEO's daughter," David stammered, his voice betraying a mix of shock and regret. "Shut up! So if you knew, you would have treated Michelle better?" "You're truly a lowlife," Smith retorted, his tone laced with disdain. "No, there's no reason for this. I'm going to report you to your company's CEO. I'm acquainted with him, and we have a long-standing relationship," Smith threatened, his words carrying weight. "No way!" David exclaimed, his eyes welling up with tears as he crumbled to his knees. Desperation etched across his face. He turned to me, his plea unspoken yet palpable. "Michelle, say something to your father for me," he implored. "You want me to say something? Huh?" I erupted, the frustration I had long suppressed finally boiling over. "Do you have any idea how much I've suffered because of your overbearing, chauvinistic attitude? I've been holding it in all this time. I tried to improve our relationship, but it's you who ruined everything, right? Treating me like a housemaid and constantly berating me. Do you know how humiliating that was?" "Wait, Michelle, please forgive me," David begged, his voice thick with emotion. "Shut up. Don't you dare casually call me by my name. No matter how much you apologize, I will never forgive you. I don't care if you fall into hardship. You get what you deserve. If you understand, never show up in front of me again. Stay out of my life forever," I declared, my resolve unwavering. At the end of my outburst, David broke down in uncontrollable sobs. Smith, with a firm grip on David's arm, bowed and left the reception room. Subsequently, David and I got divorced. When my father informed David's company president about the incident, he lost his job as well. It appeared that David had displayed a poor attitude at work and was consequently fired. Given these circumstances, he didn't receive any severance pay. Following the divorce, David apparently moved back to his parents' house. However, his in-laws were already aware of the incident. I heard his father gave him a stern scolding and kicked him out of the house. Now he seems to be working tirelessly at a factory where he can live in. He probably doesn't have much of a cushion since he has to make alimony payments to me. On the other hand, after the divorce, I moved back to my parents' house. Now, I've completely recovered and am focusing on my job. Since then, I've been meeting Smith regularly, and we have a good relationship. I'm not considering remarrying yet, but if I do someday, I want someone like him. When that time comes, I hope to build a happy family.
"Do you really believe you could just uproot your parents and move them into our home without even consulting me first?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. Ryan, my husband of 6 years, glanced up from his laptop with a smirk that had become all too familiar and despised. "Oh, Amelia, don't be so dramatic," he replied. "It's just for a while, and besides, it's not like you have a say in this." His words struck me like a slap in the face. This house, a charming 2-story nestled in a quiet suburb, wasn't just any house. It was the home my grandparents had left me. It was the place where I had envisioned raising our son, Lucas, away from the toxicity of Ryan's family. You do remember that this house is in my name, right? I retorted, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. Ryan's expression faltered, his smugness giving way to uncertainty. Just as our 2-year-old Lucas toddled into the room, I forced a smile for his sake. He was blissfully unaware of the tension. I'm not okay with this, Ryan. Your parents have never respected me or our space. Why now? I struggled to keep my voice steady. Ryan shrugged indifferently, stoking my frustration. Their family, Amelia. You wouldn't understand. The word family echoed in my mind mockingly. My own family, who ran a small but beloved coffee shop in town, had always been my sanctuary. The doorbell rang, interrupting our standoff. Through the peephole, I saw them. Ryan's parents, suitcases in tow, ready to invade our lives. Fine, Ryan, let them in. But this isn't over, I hissed, handing Lucas to him before opening the door. Amelia, darling, cried Ryan's mother, sweeping past me without a second glance. His father followed, a stern man who had barely acknowledged me since our wedding day. As they settled in, making themselves comfortable in my living room, I felt a sense of intrusion that was all too familiar. This was just the beginning, I realized. But as I watched them, something within me shifted. I was done being the compliant daughter-in-law bending to their whims. Retreating to the kitchen, my mind raced. This was my home, my sanctuary, and I was ready to fight for it. The following days turned into a blur of unwelcome changes. Ryan's mother, Elaine, had a way of making her presence known in the most suffocating manner. She rearranged my kitchen, criticized my parenting, and treated our home as if it were her own. Lucas shouldn't be eating that, Amelia. It's not healthy. Elaine chided one morning as I prepared Lucas's breakfast. Returning a sharp retort, I felt the familiar sting of her judgment. He's fine, Elaine. It's just cereal, I sighed, shaking my head. In our house, we believe in a proper diet. You really should learn. Her comments were like needles, each one pricking at my patience. Ryan, as usual, was of no help, buried in his work and oblivious to the growing tension. One evening, as I put Lucas to bed, Elaine barked into his room. He's still not sleeping through the night. You must be doing something wrong. Her words were a slap in the face, undermining my efforts as a mother. I'm doing the best I can, I snapped, unable to contain my frustration. Your best isn't good enough. Maybe if you had a real job and some structure in your life, she retorted. I felt the surge of anger. This is my house, Elaine. You're a guest here. Don't forget that. Her laugh was cold and dismissive. Oh dear, Ryan never mentioned how delusional you are. This is his house too, and as his mother, I have every right to be here. The following day, I reached my breaking point. I found Elaine in Lucas's room, going through his drawers. What do you think you're doing? I demanded, my voice trembling with anger. I'm just organizing. This room is a mess, she replied, not even bothering to look at me. That's it. I want you out of my house now, I exclaimed, feeling a mix of fury and desperation. Elaine turned to face me, her expression one of mock surprise. Your house? Oh, sweetie, you're just the wife. This is Ryan's house too, and he wants us here. I stormed out of the room, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. Ryan's betrayal, Elaine's intrusiveness, the way they dismissed my feelings. It was all too much. I had grown tired of being pushed around, weary of my home being invaded by people who had no respect for me. That night, as I lay in bed, a plan began to form in my mind. I was going to take back control of my life, my home, and my son's future. Ryan and his parents had crossed a line, and it was time for them to learn that I wasn't going to be their doormat any longer. The fight was just beginning, and I was ready. A few days later, Ryan dropped a bombshell during an already tense dinner. My parents need to stay with us longer. Their house is undergoing renovations, he said nonchalantly, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I felt my blood boil. Longer, Ryan? We never discussed them staying in the first place, I objected. He shrugged, avoiding my gaze. It's just for a few more weeks. What's the big deal? The big deal is that your mother treats me like an intruder in my own home. I snapped, my frustration reaching its peak. Elaine, overhearing our conversation, chimed in with her usual condescending tone. Amelia, you're overreacting. We're family. You should be more accommodating. Their words echoed in my mind, fueling a growing resolve. I wasn't going to let them walk all over me anymore. It was time to fight back. The next morning, I called my brother Alex, who had always been my confidant. They're taking over my life, Alex. I can't take it anymore. I confessed, choking back tears. Alex's voice was firm and supportive. Amelia, you need to stand up for yourself. Don't let them bully you. It's your house, your rules. His words were the push I needed. I decided to confront Ryan, but this time I would be prepared. I gathered evidence of Elaine's overbearing behavior, the rearranged kitchen, the disrupted routines, her constant belittling comments. Confrontation day arrived. I waited until Elaine and Ryan were in the living room. We need to talk now, I announced, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. Ryan looked up, surprised by my tone. What's this about, Amelia? He asked. It's about your parents, Ryan. Their constant interference, their disrespect for my boundaries. It ends today, I declared, holding up my list of grievances. Elaine scoffed. This is ridiculous. We're just trying to help. Help by undermining me at every turn, by treating me like I don't matter in my own home. I countered, my anger palpable. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. Amelia, they're my parents. We can't just kick them out, he protested. No, Ryan, they're guests in my home, and they've overstayed their welcome. Either they leave or I do with Lucas. I ultimatumed, my resolve unwavering. The room fell silent, the gravity of my words hanging in the air. I saw the flicker of realization in Ryan's eyes, but it was Elaine who spoke first. You wouldn't dare, she hissed, her facade slipping. Watch me, I retorted, my voice laced with determination. That night, Ryan's parents packed their bags. As they left, Elaine shot me a venomous look. You'll regret this, Amelia, she warned. But as the door closed behind them, I felt the weight lift off my shoulders. It was the first step in reclaiming my life, and I was ready for whatever came next. The days following Elaine and her husband's departure were eerily quiet. Ryan's demeanor had shifted to one of cold detachment, his interactions with me minimal and strained. I found solace in the peace of my reclaimed home and the joyous laughter of Lucas. One evening, as Lucas played with his toys, Ryan announced, I've got to go on a business trip. I'll be gone for a few weeks. His tone was indifferent, as if our strained relationship had taken a backseat to his career. Fine, I replied curtly, barely concealing my relief at the prospect of his absence. After Ryan left, the house felt different, liberating even. I started to revert the changes Elaine had imposed, each alteration feeling like a small victory. But the true turning point came when I stumbled upon a series of emails on Ryan's laptop, which he carelessly left open. They detailed an affair, an ongoing betrayal that cut deeper than any of his mother's snide remarks. Anger, hurt, and a sense of betrayal churned within me. I decided it was time for Ryan to face the consequences of his actions. I began to meticulously plan my next moves, each step calculated to ensure that Ryan and his family paid for their deceit and manipulation. The first step was to secure my financial and legal standing. I contacted a lawyer, explained my situation, and started the proceedings for what was now an inevitable divorce. Next, I turned my attention to the house, the symbol of my grandparents' legacy and my independence. I reached out to a real estate agent. I want to sell the house quickly and quietly, I told her. She was taken aback but sensed the urgency in my voice. Are you sure about this, Amelia? This is a big decision, she cautioned. I've never been more sure of anything. I replied with a resolve born of betrayal and newfound strength. The house went on the market, and within days, offers began to roll in. The thought of Ryan returning to find his precious control stripped away brought a bitter satisfaction. In the midst of this, I reconnected with my family, drawing strength from their support. "We're here for you no matter what," my father assured me as I watched Lucas play, innocent and unaffected by the turmoil. I made a silent vow to protect his happiness at all costs. Ryan's return loomed on the horizon, but I was no longer the woman he had left behind. I was ready to confront him, armed with the truth and a plan to reclaim my life. The day Ryan returned was marked with a tension that hung thick in the air. I had rehearsed this moment in my mind, envisioning every possible outcome. Yet my heart raced as I heard his key turn in the lock. "Amelia, I'm home," Ryan called out, his voice echoing through the now unfamiliar space. I emerged from the kitchen, my posture rigid. "Welcome back, Ryan. We need to talk," I announced. He glanced around, noticing the changes I had made. "What's going on?" "The house looks different," he remarked. I didn't flinch. "I sold the house, Ryan. It's no longer ours." His face contorted with disbelief. "You did what?" "You can't just sell our house without telling me," he protested. "It's my house, Ryan. And after what I discovered, I don't think you have a say anymore." I said my piece, my tone steady but laced with simmering anger. He scoffed, trying to regain his composure. "What are you talking about? The affair, Ryan?" "I know everything," I revealed, watching as his facade crumbled. His attempt at denial was weak and short-lived. "Amelia, it's not what you think," he pleaded. "I think it's exactly what it looks like. You betrayed me, our family," I retorted, the hurt evident in my tone. Ryan's expression shifted from shock to anger. "You're overreacting. We can work through this," he insisted. "There's no we anymore, Ryan. I'll file for divorce," I declared, handing him the papers. The ensuing conversation was a blur of accusations and denials, but I stood my ground. The man I had married was gone, replaced by a stranger fueled by selfish desires. As he stormed out, vowing to fight the divorce, I felt a sense of liberation mixed with apprehension. I had taken the first step towards a new life, but the battle was far from over. In the following weeks, the reality of our situation became public. Ryan's parents, once so imposing and confident, were now caught in the crossfire of their son's indiscretions. Their attempts to contact me were met with silence. I had severed all ties, focusing solely on Lucas and the finalization of the divorce. The day of the court hearing arrived. Ryan looked defeated, the weight of his actions finally dawning on him as the judge granted the divorce and custody of Lucas to me. I felt a sense of justice. Ryan's plea for reconciliation after the hearing fell on deaf ears. "You made your choice, Ryan. Now live with it," I said, turning away from him for the last time. The news of our divorce and Ryan's affair spread, affecting his reputation and relationships. His parents, once so proud and judgmental, were now shunned by those who had once respected them. As I walked out of the courthouse, holding Lucas's hand, I realized that this was not just an end but a new beginning. It was a fresh start for me and my son, free from deceit and manipulation. The future was uncertain, but it was ours to shape. Life after the divorce felt like emerging from a long, dark tunnel into the light. I had regained control, not just of the house, which was now sold, but of my life. Lucas, blissfully unaware of the adult complexities, thrived in the love and stability I provided. My days were busy but fulfilling, with my focus now on rebuilding our lives and managing the coffee shop, which had become my sanctuary. However, the shadow of Ryan and his parents lingered. One day, as I was closing the shop, Ryan appeared, looking disheveled and desperate, a stark contrast to the composed man I had once known. "Amelia, please, I need to talk to you," he pleaded, his eyes searching mine for a hint of the compassion that once existed. I hesitated, the sight of him stirring a mix of emotions. "What do you want, Ryan?" I asked, my voice tinged with embarrassment. "I can't afford the alimony and child support. I lost my job because of the scandal, and my parents, they broke too. he confessed. His words were like a cold splash of reality. That's not my problem, Ryan. You made your choices, and now you have to face the consequences, I said firmly, closing the chapter of our shared past for good. As I walked away, leaving Ryan standing alone, I felt a sense of closure. The journey had been painful, filled with betrayal and heartache, but it had led me to a place of strength and independence. Life moved on. Lucas grew, his laughter and curiosity filling our home with joy. The coffee shop flourished, becoming a hub of warmth and community. As for me, I found contentment in the simple pleasures, the smell of fresh coffee, the sound of Lucas's giggles, and the support of friends and family. Ryan and his parents became distant memories, their legacy a cautionary tale of the consequences of betrayal and selfishness. My journey had taught me the power of resilience and the importance of standing up for oneself. As I locked the shop that evening, I looked up at the sky, its hues of orange and pink signaling the end of another day. I smiled, holding Lucas's hand tightly. Our future was uncertain, but it was bright. We were moving forward, one step at a time, into a new chapter of our lives.
My name is Jennifer, and at 43 years old, I find myself completely hooked on Spanish soap operas. Thanks to various streaming services, I've been binge-watching one dramatic series after another. There's something irresistible about the constant twists and turns, but little did I know my own life was about to rival any soap opera in drama. It was nearly 6 years ago, when I was living with my older husband. We had never been blessed with children, but I cherished our time together. That all changed one evening when I received a call from Monica, my best friend since childhood, who had even attended our wedding. "Hey Jennifer, it's been a while. I wanted to let you know that I got divorced." Monica said, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. It sounds like a tough time." "Let's get together for drinks soon," I replied, trying to offer some comfort. When I got home, I was about to tell my husband about Monica's news, but he surprised me by saying, "I know Monica's divorced." I was taken aback. "How did you know about that?" "I haven't mentioned it to you yet." He looked at me with an expression that suggested he was piecing something together. "I think I'd overheard something," he said, though his vague explanation left me puzzled. I shrugged off the confusion and told him, "Yes, Monica is divorced. We're planning to meet up for drinks soon." My husband then asked, "Can I come along?" I was puzzled. I thought it was supposed to be a girls' night out. Despite my hesitation, I agreed to ask Monica if it was all right for him to join us. To my surprise, Monica responded enthusiastically, "Sure, let's all go out for drinks together." I was disappointed, wishing for a girls-only evening, but I relented. In the end, the three of us, my husband Monica, and I, met up for drinks. The night turned out to be quite enjoyable. Monica vented about her ex-husband's shortcomings, and we all shared laughs over her stories. It felt like we were having a great time, but when I excused myself to use the restroom and returned, I was taken aback by the sight of Monica and my husband gazing deeply into each other's eyes and engaged in a conversation that seemed a bit too intimate. A knot formed in my stomach as I took in the scene. The evening had started off as a simple gathering, but now I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that something was amiss. Couldn't shake the feeling that something seemed too intimate between them. They hadn't seen each other since our wedding, so how did they become so chummy after just a few drinks? It felt like I was intruding on a date between two people who were clearly more than just old friends. When I returned to my seat, they had resumed their normal demeanor, acting as if nothing had happened. I wondered if I was overreacting, but the uneasy feeling lingered. As the evening drew to a close, I decided it was time to settle the bill and leave. Monica was quite drunk, and my husband casually mentioned, "I'll take her home." His nonchalant attitude caught me off guard. "I'm going to take her home" sounded more like a command than a suggestion, as if he was deciding on his own. I protested, "I'm not as drunk as she is, but I've had a few drinks too." Besides, I'm your wife. It's too late for her to be alone, and she's in no condition to get home safely. He insisted, you take a cab and go home yourself. She's fine. I'll make sure she gets home. I was taken aback. If you take her in a cab, she'll go straight to her apartment, won't she? I'm worried she won't make it on her own. I knew Monica was living alone, and it was possible she had mentioned this while I was in the restroom. The discomfort I felt quickly turned into disbelief. Fine then. I'll go home myself, I said. I left them at the restaurant, feeling a mix of unease and determination. As much as I didn't want to leave Monica alone with my husband, I realized it might be more useful for me to return home and investigate their relationship. Once I arrived home, I headed straight to my husband's study. A room that wasn't a bedroom, a private space where he might keep important information. As I searched through the room, I realized that if I could find answers in Monica's house, it would be quite an invasion of privacy. Still, the conflict in my mind was overwhelming. While rummaging through the shelves, I stumbled upon a basic photo album, one I didn't recall seeing when we moved in. With a sinking feeling, I began flipping through the pages. I should have stopped, but it was too late. The album was filled with photos of my husband and Monica, both beaming with happiness. Judging by Monica's hairstyle and the way my husband's clothes looked, it was clear they had been meeting secretly for years, possibly since shortly after our marriage. They had been involved in an intense relationship for over a decade. The shock and the combination of my hunger and alcohol left me feeling nauseous. I rushed to the bathroom, barely making it before I began to throw up. Just as I was trying to compose myself, my husband came home. "Oh, you're throwing up? Did you drink that much?" he asked, rubbing my back. I snapped, "Don't touch me," and slapped his hand away. "Just wait a second. I need to get some water." He seemed to think I was too drunk to know what was going on. "Yes, I know who you are," I said bitterly. "I just hate you right now. I wish I could get so drunk I'd forget how much this hurts. Wait here. We need to talk," he said, clearly trying to lighten the mood with a laugh. I glared at him, trying to catch my breath. "Is this your idea of a joke? Are you trying to make light of the situation because I'm upset about you dropping her off?" He shrugged, seemingly unaware of the gravity of the moment. "Well, let's adjust the tone then. First question. What's this picture about?" I confronted him with the album I had discovered in his room, simply showing him the cover. His face turned pale as he saw it. "Let's start with a yes or no question," I said. "Is there any wife in the world who could look at this picture and be okay with it? You know, considering what it shows." He remained silent, and I pressed on, "How do you think I feel right now? Go ahead, give me an answer." When he didn't respond, I snapped, "Why aren't you saying anything? Why just sit there in silence?" His silence only heightened my frustration. "Okay, I cheated. I'm really stupid. I'm truly sorry," he finally admitted, his voice lacking sincerity. I wished he would just show some real remorse, maybe even cry a little. His silence was unbearable. Then finally he spoke. "She's the one for me. Monica and we were both married to the wrong partners. After everything, we finally found each other. I feel like we're soulmates, destined to be together." I was stunned. "Soulmates? Are you suddenly a poet or something?" He continued, "I realize now that I made a mistake marrying you. Our soul vibrations are different. We can't be happy together. This is a test of fate for me and Monica." His words were so disconnected from reality that I could hardly process them. "So, we're not connected on a spiritual level. Is that what you're saying?" I stared at him, speechless, struggling to grasp the bizarre turn of our conversation. I was completely baffled by his words. I couldn't make sense of what he was saying. Only that he and I were hopelessly incompatible. My best friend had betrayed me, my husband had betrayed me, and honestly, I was beyond tears. "I don't understand what you're talking about," I said, feeling numb. "All I know is that you and I are hopelessly incompatible. If you're so keen on being with Monica, then fine. I'm willing to let you go, because you've been a terrible husband. He seemed to be speaking in riddles, and it only made my frustration grow. I don't think you and I are compatible either, I said flatly. You've clearly lost your mind, but I still don't understand what you're on about. I knew you'd say that, he replied, seemingly resigned. So you'll agree to a peaceful divorce, right? I replied, so you won't be paying alimony then. He didn't seem to grasp the gravity of the situation. I don't think I'm in the right spiritual mindset to deal with you right now, he said, his voice trailing off as if he were in a different world. His incoherence was almost maddening. What's the matter with you, Jen? He asked. I responded with an equally ridiculous answer. I'm ignoring your absurd divorce request. Ignoring his pleas, I headed to the shower. He continued to shout from the other room, criticizing me and demanding a response. I'll never be free unless you agree to divorce me, he yelled. I ignored him completely. You'll be free to do what you want, and I'll be free from you. From this day on, you're nothing but a piece of trash to me, as insignificant as mold in a bathtub. The next morning, my husband left for work in a foul mood. I didn't greet him, prepare his breakfast, or even help him with his tie. I had taken the day off after our night out, and I got up just in time to see him leave. Well, from today on, I'll be living alone. I decided to tidy up my room, and by the evening, when my husband came home, I heard him call out from the front porch, I'm home. But I didn't respond. Soon he was shouting about his missing shoes. Hey Jen, where are my shoes? And why are you eating without me? I remained silent, watching TV and enjoying my steak and fine champagne. Yes, I threw away your shoes, I called out without looking at him. It's normal to eat alone since I live here by myself. I have quite a bit saved up, so I'm treating myself. He sounded frustrated. Jen, are you even listening? I poured myself another glass of champagne, ignoring him. We'll talk after I get out of the shower, he said, but I could hear the irritation in his voice. As I heard him clattering around upstairs, I knew he was searching for his pajamas. Then he called down, Jen, why is there nothing in my room? Where are my pajamas? I can't even take a bath without any clothes. I replied calmly, I live alone now. You'll have to figure it out. I quickly finished my meal and went to my room, showing no reaction to his distress. He followed me, asking where his food was. Go buy your own, I said. I've told you repeatedly that I live alone. I had already finished my bath, so I headed straight to the bedroom. I had even disposed of his toothbrush, curious to see how he would manage in the morning. When I woke up, my husband was sitting in a chair, looking like Roddins the Thinker. He must have been in such a rush last night that he didn't manage to properly get ready. His hair was sticky and messy, exposing his scalp. As soon as he saw me, he tried to compose himself and got down on his knees, desperately apologizing. I was genuinely shocked by how far he was willing to go. It hurts me to know how you've treated me, but I realize I've done terrible things to you without considering your feelings, he said, his voice full of regret. I'm sorry for that. His apology was exactly what I needed to hear, but I didn't respond. I want us to start over, he added, hoping for a second chance. I was stunned into silence. I gave him a look of sheer disgust. No, I said. I can't live with someone who is spiritually lost, cheats, and causes so much trouble. His shock was palpable. You don't like that? He asked, clearly taken aback. Think about what you did, I said coldly. Say something if you have a clue. He pleaded, I'll do whatever you say. I knew he was falling back on his usual tactics. Promises and material gifts whenever we had a fight. But this time I was prepared. Okay then, do as I say, I replied, the words I'd been waiting to say finally escaping my lips. I smiled, and his face fell, a look of despair spreading across it. I wanted to see that expression. No, I corrected myself. I don't mean it like that. His confusion was evident. I have no intention of accepting any terms, I continued. Do you really think you can just brush off your infidelity after all this time? I'm taking action against both you and Monica, I declared. I'll do everything in my power to hold both of you accountable. And I'll inform Monica's ex-husband as well. You'll both be facing alimony claims. He looked at me with wide eyes. Good luck paying them, I said. Come on, get up and take your things with you. I forced him to gather his belongings and dragged him to the front door. Where are you taking me? He asked, bewildered. Outside, I said firmly. I'm taking over this house. It's mine now. I don't want any more strangers in my home. Wait, can't you at least wait until after the divorce? He pleaded. That's not going to happen, I snapped back. Why not? What the hell, Jen? You just started talking all of a sudden and then you were so cold. Shut up and get out. I shoved him out the front door with all my might. The strength I was able to muster came from the years of accumulated stress and anger. It's strange how much negative energy can build up over time. Before the divorce papers were finalized, we all, my husband Monica, her ex-husband, and I, met to discuss things. Monica admitted she had fallen for my husband at our wedding and had approached him immediately afterward. Their affair began then, and they had been discreetly continuing their relationship, hoping to stay under the radar until they were both free. They had been cheating on both their families. Monica's ex-husband was devastated when he first learned of the affair. I had no sympathy for the situation. Instead, I was relieved. The evidence they provided would support my claim for alimony. After being kicked out of our home, my husband moved in with Monica. But when she received the alimony demands from both me and her ex-husband, reality hit her hard. We can't remarry if we're in debt, she said. I need to find someone with better financial prospects. She gave him the boot, despite her claims of a spiritual connection with him. Isn't she the soulmate you thought you were connected to on a deeper level? And now you're losing her over money. I couldn't help but feel disgusted by their predicament. Suck it up, I thought. This is what you get for betraying your wife. 6 years have passed since then. While I was paying alimony, my ex-husband retired and had to spend most of his retirement funds on those payments. He still struggles and Monica's situation isn't any better. She's living in tough conditions, having exhausted her savings on alimony, and no man would want to remarry her in her current state. As for me, I've been earning well but haven't done anything special with my money except focus on work. Life is unpredictable, so I'm trying to live modestly and do what I enjoy. They say, if you're prepared for anything, you're prepared for everything. I've been enjoying watching Spanish soap operas every day. Recently, I met someone at work who shares my interest, and we're even talking about traveling to Spain together someday. I look forward to that day, and I'm not concerned with soul vibrations. For now, my goal is to live happily and peacefully.
Grace, you even realize what you've done? What kind of person just abandons their duties as a wife and causes problems for William? You're a terrible wife, and I'm going to teach you a lesson. Mother, Grace responded calmly, I have my reasons for leaving. It doesn't matter, her mother-in-law snapped. We're moving into a nice, new apartment. If you want to live with us, I'll let you know the address. Grace thought to herself, I'm sure she still doesn't know anything. Well, it's a good thing she's in the dark. No, thank you, Grace said firmly. My name is Grace. I'm 35 years old, and I work in an office. My husband, William, and I have been married for 5 years. He's now 40, 5 years older than me. I used to date older men, but William's generosity and kindness drew me to him, and we eventually got married. For a while, our marriage was satisfying, but before long, a shadow fell over our peaceful life. I lost my job. William was suddenly laid off too. The company's business had taken a hit from the recession. I never imagined he would lose his job, especially since he worked for a big company. I thought we'd be financially secure for life, but it turns out that nothing is guaranteed in this world. We became financially strained, and I decided to return to work immediately. I contacted the company I had worked for before getting married, and luckily, they rehired me. They needed someone to fill in for an employee who had just gone on maternity leave. I was relieved that at least we had some income, but William struggled to find a new job. It's tough for a middle-aged man to start over. Eventually, he had no choice but to take on part-time work as a day laborer, bringing in about $700 a month. I was back at work, but my salary wasn't much either. We were barely making ends meet. "William," I suggested one evening, "the rent here is too high. Maybe we should move to a cheaper place and save some money. It would help us manage better if we lower our fixed costs." We had been living comfortably in a nice apartment thanks to William's previous high income, but now I thought it was time to face reality and find a more affordable place. But William rejected my idea firmly. "No, we're not moving." "Why not?" I asked, confused. "If we move to a smaller, cheaper apartment, Mom will start asking questions." "So what?" I countered. "Why not just tell her the truth? We're having a hard time making ends meet because you're out of work." William's face turned red with anger. "Don't you dare tell my mother I'm unemployed. Your salary and my earnings are enough to pay the rent. We'll leave it at that." I was shocked and confused. It seemed like he cared more about his pride in our home than about protecting our marriage. Even if we could cover the rent, we were still struggling with our finances. I had suggested moving to save money, but William wouldn't budge, and I eventually gave up on the idea. Life continued to be difficult, and then one day, William made an unbelievable comment to me. "This is all we have for dinner today?" he asked, incredulous. "We used to have more dishes. Just because you've started working doesn't mean you can slack off on your duties. Don't be lazy and manage this better." His words made me furious, and I couldn't hold back my retort. "I have no choice. We were struggling to make ends meet. I was doing my best to manage both the house and my job. But someone's unnecessary pride in staying in this apartment left me no choice but to cut back on food expenses. Or you could just make more money, and then everything would be just the way you want it," I remarked provocatively. William's face flushed with anger. "What the hell? Don't you dare talk to me like that. Just wait and see. I'll land a job at a good company and make more money than you." William's temper flared, but I told myself that if this sparked his motivation, I could endure his outbursts. I convinced myself it was fine, but reality soon set in. Despite his determination, William couldn't find a new job. He ended up working part-time as a day laborer, unable to secure anything better. Even with renewed motivation, the job market proved harsh. I could understand if he had taken the time to study and earn a qualification, but he hadn't. He simply worked part-time. Each interview led to rejection, and the humiliation of bowing down to younger interviewers wore him down. Eventually, William stopped looking for a job altogether, though he still believed he could earn more than me. By this point, I was disappointed and had already given up on the idea that he would turn things around. But my worries didn't stop with William. Earlier today, I received yet another phone call, this time from my mother-in-law. She called without hesitation, despite knowing I was at work. When I checked my phone during lunch, I saw over 10 missed calls. When I finally returned her call, her voice was sharp from the very first word. "Why didn't you answer the phone right away? I told you the other day that I'm at work, didn't I?" "Work? You call that working? My needs should come first." Since losing her husband a year ago, my mother-in-law had been calling me constantly. I understood she was lonely and felt I should support her, but all she ever talked about was how it's a wife's duty to support her husband. When she found out I had started working, she became furious and wouldn't stop calling. While I was at work, my phone rang again. "Did you talk to William about this properly? You can't even bother to return my calls." "I'm sorry," I said, trying to keep my tone calm, "but it's difficult for us to live with you right now." "I'm not asking for your opinion," she snapped. "William won't object to it." "Actually, William says it's too difficult," I explained. "Besides, we're having some financial issues." "Financial issues? How can that be? William works for a big company. They pay him well, so you two must be rich, right?" I was at a loss for words. William had been adamant that I shouldn't tell my mother-in-law the truth, so I couldn't explain our situation. She thought I was being selfish for working, convinced that I was lying about our financial struggles. Her constant calls were stressful, not just when I was at work, but even at night. A wife's first priority should be to support her husband, she often lectured. Taking care of your husband means taking care of his mother too. Why haven't you visited me lately? What's wrong with you? I work full-time, and I'm exhausted, I explained. William has been working part-time on weekends, so our schedules don't match. I'm sorry, but we're both so busy that it's hard to find time. Your schedules? But William is off on weekends. You could come then, couldn't you? My mother-in-law was clearly frustrated and kept pressing me. I felt it was time to tell her the truth about William. Actually, William works on weekends. What do you mean? She demanded. Just as I was about to reveal the truth, William, who had been lying on the sofa watching TV, rushed over and grabbed the phone from me. Mom, I'm sorry I haven't been able to visit you lately, he said smoothly. I'm working on a big project right now and have been putting in extra hours on weekends. I'll come visit as soon as things settle down. With that, he ended the call and turned to me, his expression stern. What were you doing? He asked, his voice low. Were you trying to tell my mom? I just think it's better to tell the truth, I replied, frustrated. If you keep this up, she'll keep nagging me because she doesn't know what's really going on. I'm sorry to hear that, but don't you dare tell my mom, William warned. That's enough, I shot back. You need to swallow your pride and tell her the truth. Shut up, I'm the one keeping us afloat, so you should be thanking me instead of talking back, he snapped, then stormed off to his room. I was on the verge of breaking down. The financial strain, combined with the pressure from both William and his mother, had pushed me to my limits. William claimed his part-time job was too demanding for him to do any housework, but he only worked on weekends and one day during the week. I knew he was capable of finding a better job or at least helping out around the house, but he chose not to. How can you do nothing at home and expect me to handle all the chores on top of everything else? I had finally reached my breaking point. I decided to leave for a while and return to my parents' house for a week. I wanted William to experience just how hard it was to manage the household alone. When I told my parents about our situation, they advised me to consider a divorce, but I wasn't ready to give up on our marriage that easily. We had been in love once, and we had been married for 5 years. If I was going to end it, I wanted to be sure I had done everything I could to make it work. After I left, William called me. When are you coming back? Where's my mail? I will be home for a while, I replied firmly. You'll have to do all the housework while I'm gone. Don't be ridiculous. Just come home and do the chores. No, I won't. Now you'll see how hard it is to handle everything on your own. You clean the house, do the laundry, cook, do it all yourself. It's important for you to understand just how much I've been doing while also working full-time. I ignored William's calls, deciding not to engage. Staying at my parents' house was a relief. For the first time in a long while, I shared the housework with my mom and dad. My mother would say, "You must be exhausted," as she served up home-cooked meals. I felt so grateful not having to do anything, with meals appearing as if by magic. I spent about a week at my parents' house, and honestly, I wanted to stay longer. But commuting from there to my office was challenging. It took an hour and a half each way. Eventually, I thought William must have realized by now how hard it was to manage the housework alone. So I decided it was time to return home. I was worried the house would be a mess, but when I walked in, I was surprised to find it cleaner than I expected. Still, something felt off. I had a sinking feeling and went straight to William's room. The closet was empty. His clothes and suitcases were gone. It hit me that he might have gone to his mother's place, so I called him. "What do you want now?" he answered, his tone cold. "Where are you?" I asked. "I'm at my parents' house." "You left right after I did, didn't you?" I said, trying to make sense of it. "That's right," he admitted. "What did you expect? You shouldn't have left in the first place. I'm not going back to that house." "What do you mean?" I asked, confused and hurt. "I'm going to live with my mom. In fact, we're moving into a new apartment." "I have no idea what you're talking about," I stammered, at a loss for words. Suddenly, the voice on the other end of the line changed. "Hey Grace," my mother-in-law's voice cut in sharply. "Do you have any idea what you've done? How dare you abandon your duties as a wife and cause trouble for William? You're such a terrible wife, and I'm going to teach you a lesson." "Mother, I have my reasons for leaving," I tried to explain. "It doesn't matter," she interrupted. "We're moving into a nice, new apartment. If you want to live with us, I'll let you know where it is." I realized she still had no idea what was really going on. This could work to my advantage, but I had to be firm. "No, thank you." "What?" she asked, clearly shocked. I said no. I repeated, "I'm not going." "Are you serious?" William is going to live with me. If you don't come here, you'll have to be alone. You've been relying on him, haven't you? Don't worry, I replied calmly. I can manage on my own. If we're not living together, there's no reason for us to stay married. I'm divorcing him. What? The word divorce clearly stunned both my mother-in-law and William. Their surprise was palpable through the phone. Grace, there's no need to mention divorce, William pleaded. I can't stay married to you anymore, I said, my resolve firm. I need to get rid of a husband like you as soon as possible. My mother-in-law snapped. How dare you talk to William like that? We don't want a life with you either, so fine. William, just get the divorce. No, William protested, but I cut him off. I'll have the divorce papers ready. You'll regret this, and it'll be too late for apologies. Same to you, I shot back before the call ended abruptly. I knew they would probably show up with the divorce papers soon, but I was relieved. Things were finally going the way I wanted. William's refusal to change made my decision clear. There was no need for us to stay together any longer. I decided to pack my bags while waiting for my mother-in-law to arrive. A few hours later, she showed up alone. Oh, William isn't here, she remarked, looking around. He doesn't need to be, I replied. Here you go, she said, handing me the divorce papers. I already had him fill out his section. Now, you just need to complete yours. As I took the papers, I noticed that William's handwriting looked shaky, as if written with trembling hands. My William is such a wonderful man, my mother-in-law continued, her voice filled with disdain. Even with a horrible wife like you, he was reluctant to get a divorce. I'll never forgive you for causing trouble for such a great person. I hope you live a miserable life and regret this. While I filled out my part of the form, she continued her tirade. William's pride had kept him from telling his mother the truth, even at the end. What a pathetic man he was. What happened to your house? I noticed it's empty. If you want to come back, there's no place for you, she sneered. I won't be coming back, I responded calmly. How much did you get for it? It was old, so it must have sold for cheap. That's none of your business, I said, tired of her prying. But since you're so curious, it was about $50,000. Not much, but enough for a comfortable retirement. William will pay for our new apartment, she bragged. Oh, so you were surprised he got approved? I asked, raising an eyebrow. William is a high-class person. It's only natural, she huffed. So, you put the money in William's account, I pressed. How did you know that? That's not important, she snapped. Stop asking questions and remember, you're just a divorced woman now. It's too late to hold on to him. Don't worry, I said, signing the papers with a flourish. I've already agreed to the divorce. My mother-in-law snorted and stormed out, clearly irritated. As she left, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I was finally free from both her and William. I gathered the rest of my belongings and moved them to my parents' house, where I discovered a fresh start and the peace I had longed for. When I finally left, I managed to provoke my mother-in-law just enough to escape the burden of poverty they tried to impose on me. She insisted there was no way I'd get any of William's assets, but I couldn't help but remember the look on William's pale face during our discussions about the division of property. It still makes me chuckle. Then, about 2 years later, I received a call early one morning from an unfamiliar number. Thinking it might be work-related, I answered, only to hear the voice of my ex-mother-in-law. Oh, Grace, please help me, she cried. Mother, I replied coldly, you can't keep calling me that. We're strangers now. Don't say that. I'm in trouble. Oh, can't pay the rent? Savings running low? I asked, already guessing the situation. Yes, she admitted, her voice trembling. William didn't tell you about our financial problems until we were broke, did he? Oh, I knew, I said, unimpressed. He tried to hide it, didn't he? But every time I wanted to speak up, William told me not to. I'm sorry, Grace. I didn't know anything. I apologize. But please come back. I don't want to, I said firmly. William never changed, no matter how much I tried, and you always bullied me. I don't want to spend another minute with someone like you. Please don't say that. I don't have anything to eat anymore. I'm really desperate. According to my ex-mother-in-law, William had continued to put on airs, refusing to reveal their financial struggles. He'd been using the $50,000 from selling their family home to pay rent, splurging on expensive groceries and fancy meals to keep up appearances. It wasn't long before the money was gone, leaving them penniless. He got what he deserved, didn't he? I said, unfazed. Why don't you drop your pride and live modestly in a cheaper apartment? No, it wasn't supposed to be like this, she wailed. I was supposed to live a comfortable life with my elite son. Her cries fell on deaf ears. I quietly hung up the phone and blocked her number, taking the extra step of getting a restraining order just in case. I had no interest in being their crutch anymore. They always leaned on someone else, whether parents or children, never learning to stand on their own. I, on the other hand, was determined to live independently. With that resolve, I got my life back on track, focusing on my own happiness and well-being. William and his mother could continue their unbalanced, delusional lives without me. I'm so glad Grace could sever ties with such toxic people. Now she's free to lead an independent life, and who knows, maybe she'll meet a wonderful man in the future. Let's wish her a happy life from now on. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel if you enjoyed this story. See you in the next video.